Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by Dan Tack.
I am here.
Welcome, sir. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Then we have Matt Miller.
Hello.
The champion of the people. And then we have Kyle Hilliard.
Hi.
Hey, everybody. We're talking about a lot of games. There's still games that we did not cover, even though we did 4 episodes of the Game Informer Show from E3. Believe it or not, that was not enough to cover even a percentage, even a fraction of the games at the show. So
hundreds of games.
it was really wild. So we're doing a little bit of mopping up, but there's no time for mopping up because there's customers coming in the door, and these customers are Ever Oasis on 3DS and Final Fantasy 14 expansion and a Darkest Dungeon expansion with Dan Tack, right? DLC, there we go. Exciting times. And then we're covering a bunch of other little games here and there. Then we have some great emails, most of them E3 related, which is fun. And then back half of the show, I get the two Jeffs in here and we break down what's left to want in the games industry. Seems like fans are getting a lot of their wildest dreams coming true with a 2D Metroid, Pokemon coming to Switch, like outside of Nintendo even. What is left to want? We break down the list because it turns out there's more than you'd think. You think we have most bases covered? That is not the case.
There's always things to complain about.
Apparently.
Extreme desire or passion for things. Not necessarily, complaining that something doesn't exist.
Polite emails
I'm
to
not saying
companies.
there's anything wrong with complaints, but they are complaints. Come on, man. Like,
All
if you're like, why hasn't this happened yet?
Right.
That I do that.
That's exactly. It's
I'm
30
complaining.
minutes of why hasn't this happened yet. So
Well,
look
that sounds
forward to
entertaining.
that.
I'll be there.
Kyle Hilliard.
Hi.
You're first up, dude.
I am.
Ever Oasis.
Yep.
This is a game we talked about a couple times, I think, on the podcast. It is from the studio that made the remakes of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on 3DS.
And they did a Street Pass game and The Legend of Legacy.
Alright.
And it's directed by the man who created the Mana series.
Yeah, the Mana
Like,
himself.
He's Mr. Grezzo now.
And Dan Tack is so excited.
Well, unfortunately, I talked to Kyle about this game earlier, so I wish I could be excited. But Kyle's
Yeah.
here to tell you all about that.
And it's not that you shouldn't be excited. I just told Dan that it's not a Mana game. It's not like a big action RPG. So
I mean, well, there is an action RPG quality to this game, right?
There is, but it's like one piece of a big pie about building a community out in the middle of a desert,
Yes. So the game is
Yeah.
targeting combat and then a very light sim of building out this friendly town.
Yeah, I feel like you just played a little bit, right?
Yeah, first couple hours.
Okay,
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm spending less time fighting than I thought I would, which is interesting. I'm spending more time restocking shops and like getting money from those shops, and then greeting new people to my town and finding out what they need and upgrading my Oasis, and then like in between all that sort of management, which is interesting. I don't dislike the management. You go outside of your town and then you get into little scuffles with snakes or whatever.
Yeah, out of the gate.
Snakes.
Yeah, snakes. Yeah.
They have good names. Like one of the enemies out of the gate, it's called like a leopard.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Some weird
I like the
looking
enemies.
creature.
They're interesting and fun to fight, and the combat is more difficult. Maybe not the right word, but you have to pay more attention than I thought you would.
I died several times in the
Yeah.
first couple hours, which is surprising for a game with kind of like a chibi aesthetic.
I mean, once you figure out dodging, like you're in good shape. But like I
You
did,
got to dodge, Ben.
yeah,
that's
you got to
the
roll
ticket.
out of the way. But
Don't
I did.
just let them hit you.
I did
Teach
go
their
into
own.
a lot of fights being like, all right, well, I'm just going to hit A a bunch until this is over, and it's not going to work. You got to get out of the way when they attack and stuff like that. And I like that. I like the game for that. I like that the combat's a little more thoughtful than I expected it to be.
Is this game what about people who don't have any investment in like the legacy of this creator and all that kind of stuff?
You mean me?
Is there anybody who like if somebody was just coming at this game fresh, is this a good game?
I like this game. I'm that person. I didn't play Mana. I don't have any affection for Mana. I like this game. It kind of struggles a little bit. I'm still sort of formulating my full thoughts, but it struggles a little bit with, I guess you could say, identity. Like it doesn't have a ton of character to it. Even though you're meeting all these different people, they don't really feel super distinct. And then you're also there's a little bit of Animal Crossing, there's a little bit of action RPG, there's a little bit of management, and no single one of those things like stands out as being this destination for that game. Like it's all those things done pretty well, and everything is constantly leveling up. You're leveling up your town, you're leveling up your character, you're leveling up the shops in your town. So there's always something to go after, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Is it just a series of little simple tasks though for each villager? Like, okay, I need new berries in my shop. Well, you'll go out and do that. Does it
a
ever
lot
get
of fetch
more
quests.
interesting beyond that?
Not really. Mostly it's, go here and get this thing. I'm trying to think. There are puzzles. There are like dungeons, I put in quotes, like where there's a little bit of puzzle solving and there's a little bit of making sure you have the right person with you.
Because they're gated. Like, you need this ability to get through this door, and so you have to build up your town to a point where that person will hopefully wander in from the desert and say, "Oh, sweet Jesus Christ, there's an oasis here. Let me into your town for a little while."
By the way, I can like jump in this plant and create a wall. If you ever need that at some point, I can do that. Which
you're in, kid.
I do. That really can be frustrating. I think of like Yoshi's Island DS. You always needed a specific baby with you to get past certain points, and then it was always a matter of like, oh, well, I can't get past this point. Let me walk back and go switch out for the different baby. I think this does a better job. It's a weird line to draw comparing those two games, but you do have like an instant fast travel thing where like if you walk up to a puzzle and you don't have the person with you, you can fast travel home really quick, get them, and come back, and even switch them back out after you solve the puzzle if you want. It's pretty quick.
Well, speaking of specific baby, Dantek, what are you worried about with this game? What turned you off from Kyle's description?
Actually, I like Kyle's description. Is this game like Fantasy Life then? It's something like that? Because I enjoyed that game.
A little bit, yeah. Fantasy, and that's Fantasy Life is a good comparison, though. I think Fantasy Life had, correct me if I'm wrong, like more options in terms of like the style of game you wanted to play. Like there were different classes basically, and stuff, right?
But they're all just boiled down to do this fetch quest again and again and again.
But yeah, that's a good comparison. Yeah, I didn't play like a ton of Fantasy Life.
Sim management RPG style is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right. With pretty fun combat. It's okay.
Do they ever get nicer to the animal creatures wandering into your camp? Because there's like humans that come in, but then there's also just like these little
seedlings.
Yes. Wait. Oh, seedlings are the humans?
They're not. I don't know what they are. They're not humans. That's actually the thing. I don't actually really like the way anybody looks in this game. I don't like the character designs. There's these like. There's these tall sort of martial art guys that are kind of cool, but then there's these squat, like really powerful guys. When you see them talk, I don't understand how their mouths work.
What does it look like?
It's kind of like, like if you held up your finger to like your mouth and just moved it on that single axis. I'm trying to describe it. It doesn't
like
make
South Park.
Yeah, like
mouth?
Canadian South Park.
Almost. Yeah. I don't. But anyway,
so you don't like Canadians.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
Okay. Have you ever seen him talk to Elise?
I do not talk to Elise. I
understand.
avoid her as much as possible.
I'm just saying it's weird because there's all these people wandering into your town from the desert, and there's like little fat creature things, and it's like, oh, they don't actually live.
Yeah, they don't matter at all.
You can't even talk to them. You go and you wave hello, and then you keep on walking.
Yeah.
But technically, they can roam the streets at night.
I think in the like manual for the game, I forget what it says, but it's something along the lines of like these mysterious creatures. Well, they like to buy stuff, and nobody knows why. So they're the ones that are just buying all your stuff.
We need somebody to come to the town, but we don't want to write dialogue for them, so they can just have a good time.
Exactly.
In there.
Yeah, and they just wander around. You
so
can't
they literally
interact with
just
them.
to like fill up space in the town.
Yeah, which the weird thing about them is they are totally distinct from the other characters that you talk to. They're just like these squat little penguins that no one pays attention to that take up space in your town, and they're the ones apparently spending all the money. So
that's perfect.
Yeah.
So recommending it to people who want this experience. Does like the town building ever get more interesting?
No, it's you can place like there's a grid where you can place buildings and you can change their color between like 4 colors.
Okay.
And you can upgrade them so they look a little different.
All right.
But it's not like you're not really building your town. You're more just sort of setting up signposts and stuff like that. And it also does a good job of like because like when you have 2 or 3 shops, it's not a big deal to go into each one and like restock them. But it pretty quickly gives you the opportunity to just go to the front of your town and be like, hey, give everybody whatever they need. I got to go run off and do other stuff. So.
It seems to do a good job of like rewarding you with plenty of bombastic level ups and progression, just like rainbow letters and graffiti flying across the screen. It also does kind of a Final Fantasy 15 style thing where you'll be out training for a while and just fighting enemies. And it's like, well, there's no progression, bizarre, and it just stockpiles it until you go back to the town.
Yeah.
And then gives you a really satisfying moment of just, oh, look at all these meters going up. This is crazy. It's everything you ever wanted.
Something is always leveling up. It's your town, your person, your villagers that are with you, and then even the individual shops level up as well. So there's always something, or someone's coming into your town and they're ripping their heart out of their chest and planting it into the ground.
Oh, perfect.
As they do. You know?
Yeah.
Whoa. Take a step back.
Was it the people coming into the town? Is that what you're confused about?
Heart ripping.
Oh, heart ripping. I don't know. They have their hearts whenever you do a task for them and they decide to live with you. Their heart appears and they plant it in the ground and you get a nice little musical sting. And
they've lost their hearts then, huh?
their hearts belong to your town. Some of them have 2 hearts. You can skip those cutscenes if
like
they bother you. You can press start and skip
this
those.
is like a lot of things you're describing, like sight unseen, make this sound like a horror game where there's just a bunch of squat like penguin people wandering the town with no purpose.
They all look like Danny DeVito's penguin.
And people ripping their hearts out and planting them in the ground.
The game's intro is actually an Oasis coming to a horrific end and your brother dying.
Maybe
this is a
maybe
horror
you're
game.
reading this the wrong way, Kyle. This is just a really
take out the
terrifying
rainbows.
game.
What do you have? I don't know.
So in the beginning, it's a lot of hand-holding.
Yeah.
Does it fall into a rhythm outside of that later on?
It's not great about that because even as far in as I am, I'm still getting like little brief tutorials about like a new. It's usually just like 2 pages of dialogue, and by pages I mean it's like 2 sentences that you have to swipe through. But like even kind of late in the game when you meet a new character who has a new skill, you get a quick tutorial about that. So you never really feel totally set loose, or you're still kind of locked into doing specific things. So
all right.
Like I don't think I guess you could just kind of run out in the wasteland and just fight for a long time if you wanted to, but it's like there's no reason to do that. You have other more pressing tasks that it's requesting that you do right away. So
this feels like a kind of game where you say, all right, a lot when describing it.
Yes,
All
absolutely. Right. But I think the big, I guess, value of it is that there's a lot to level up, and it's exciting to level up everything, and the combat's fun. So I've been enjoying it.
You know what those little penguin things remind me of?
Danny DeVito from Batman Returns?
I was just going to say that, yeah. Do you remember, Miller, your favorite little creatures from Xenoblade Chronicles X? The Nopon?
Oh, I've really tried to block out those weeks from my memory as much as I could.
You started out and you're like, I think this is cool.
I know I did.
And then it just descended into this is far too repetitive.
I know I did.
The way I unwind from E3 is I go back and watch a lot of the Nintendo's Treehouse stuff, and I watch they have a 40-minute gameplay video for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Did any of you guys watch that?
Mm-mm.
Pal, you're into
That's
Nintendo
the way you
stuff.
unwind from E3?
Absolutely.
All
Just
right.
a
More E3.
tall glass of wine, listening to podcasts about E3, and then watching Nintendo YouTube videos for the gameplay videos that I missed out. But Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it also has like that very chibi art style. It's pretty radical departure even from the first one.
I don't love those character designs either. Weird clothes.
And the entire game, it feels it's too simple to say babyified, but it seems a little bit simplified from the original Xenoblade Chronicles.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
No,
certainly.
I don't think so. Like the UI is much cleaner, and the big thing with this time is that you're like swapping around your. You still have 2 other companions you can fight with, Miller, so you're in luck. But much like, remember the Skells in Xenoblade Chronicles X? So instead of like having that bond with your mech this time around, there's these little things that they just call blades, and you're called a driver. And so you're going around collecting different blades, and then that'll give you a new moveset of 3. And then that blade, which is just basically a Pokemon-esque character, will just hover around you and feel your moves, and then you can just swap it out on the fly. So it's more different than you'd expect. Also, with the way the original Xenoblade Chronicles ends, I don't know how this universe makes sense anymore, because that ending is insane, and it has a twist that like contextualizes how that world came to exist. And now with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it's like, oh, now there's just a bunch of other giant titans around that you're climbing around the back.
Have they definitively said it's exactly the same universe?
No, but it still is based on like climbing around on the backs of those titans. So maybe there's just a similar incident that sparks the universe.
And I don't mean this as a joke, but it does have a 2 at the end of it. Like they could have called it Xenoblade something else and not called Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Chronicles F.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Speaking of running around in an open world, do you want to talk about
I like running around in open worlds.
Final Fantasy 14's big old thing? Because there's a surprising line for it at E3 this year.
Not surprising at all.
Stormblood?
Everybody has, honestly, that game like continues to survive in an MMO market where subscription models have mostly died off except from the big dogs, and they are lucky to be able to call themselves one. Stormblood.
Yeah, baby.
Although Darkest Dungeons has been taking most of my time, I have dipped in. I've got my Red Mage cooking. We're casting spells.
Ooh.
I've got both the Red Mage and the Samurai going.
Okay.
Those are the 2 new classes for the expansion. Focusing on the Red Mage. That's who I'll be maining this expansion.
And what they're cooking up, is it good eating, Dan?
Yeah, it's actually, it's not like the bold, blazing new trails on like the character class frontier, but it's a neat concept. You cast one spell, then you get the next spell free. So like you cast a little dumb spell, and then you cast your big spell without a cast timer, which is really nice.
So
And
it
then
just
you
It's
form a
the
rotation.
Kmart of Final Fantasy classes.
You get to like do a rotation of both black and white magic, and you have like bars that fill up, and then you get to use rapier skills as well at close range. So he's like in combat, out of combat, ranged caster, but sometimes in the battle to like blow up his bar of resources. It's interesting. It's not like the traditional. It's not like a red mage that I know from the classic Final Fantasies, which is basically crappy black magic and crappy white magic together with crappy melee.
naturally.
It's its own ranged caster class, and it's really cool. And you get XP from PvP now, which is great. As always, there's constant changes coming down the pipeline for that game. I'm still in the leveling process, so I can't talk too much about what's going to happen later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you already like Final Fantasy 14, you will like this.
Now help us out if we're very stupid. Is this the second expansion?
It is.
14?
This is
Okay.
after Heavensward.
And you were hot on that one too, right?
I thought it was an improvement. Now the big deal for that game with me is I think it's done a lot of things great. It's got great music. It successfully
Yeah.
captures the Final Fantasy aesthetic. You got all your favorite nostalgia bombs, from Tonberries to Chocos to mech suits.
We call them Choco Bows, sir.
I'm just abbreviating.
Hip lingo. Uh-huh.
Our
They're good
audience
friends.
knows what a chocobo is.
Sure.
Right? So it does a great job at nailing all that stuff and even tying in games, for like ancient games, like even Final Fantasy 1 characters from Final Fantasy 1. Sometimes.
Characters?
Yes. Like the old blind
There are
witch.
some characters.
Yeah, there are. There are characters in
There's
the first
totally
Final Fantasy.
characters.
Final Fantasy 1 is a great game.
I'm not crapping on Final Fantasy 1. I'm just trying to figure out how they rope in characters from Final Fantasy 1 into this.
Yeah, it's because it's the Final Fantasy universe, so it does some pretty liberal things with the lore. But they're
Well,
they're
hang on
there.
a second. I didn't think that outside of Dissidia, a thing such as a Final Fantasy universe existed. Do they have any explanations of the lore? Like,
Yeah.
a portal, and then
You go to different even as back as Hemisphere, we were going to destinations from other Final Fantasies. Like,
well, I understand like Costa del Sol and stuff is in there from
Yes.
7, I remember,
and
but
then you have like a literal dungeon from 5, I believe.
but it's all just fan service. It's not like there's any lore explanation for why suddenly this character from Final Fantasy 1
They
is walking
attempt to
through.
put quest lines together to.
I know, but do they explain or attempt to explain why
some
everything's
things
merging?
yes and some things no. Again, like Costa del Sol, as far
You're
as
like
I
the
know.
Sphinx, Dan. I can't.
No, the more of like the game doesn't want to really get into those details.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I played enough of that game. I think I know what Dan's talking about. Like, there's they're giving you nods a lot of times, but without being without explicitly saying like this character has traveled from another
Thank you.
Final
It's just fan
Fantasy
service.
universe.
Great fan
At least
service.
the ones that I encountered.
It's its own universe.
Yeah, it is its own thing, but it's very clear when you run into those towns or those characters that
It's its own
they're
universe
like,
that uses things from
nods.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad we got to the bottom of that mystery.
Is it kind of like Tingle showing up in multiple Zelda games, but them never explicitly saying it's the same Tingle? Is that kind of the idea?
No,
No,
I don't think so.
I was trying to find
Like,
a
these-
good
these are-
line of
Wait,
comparison.
okay, we
Within-
cut tiles, Mike.
they're canonical within the own 14 universe, right?
Yeah.
Right. But that doesn't mean that it extends outside of that.
Gotcha. So new fan service this time around outside of the character
I'm
classes?
sure there is. I'm still working up those levels, man.
There's
Because
a lot to get through. Huh?
You have to start at 50 on the new classes. So the grind has begun yet again, exploring some of the same areas.
So
that I used to.
do you have to have a character that you have gotten to 50?
You have to have a character at cap, which is 6. No, wait, 60 is the new cap, right? No, 70 is. So
Okay.
you have to have a 60, I think.
Okay.
A class level 60 in order to make the new level 50s. So, and I had my machinist back from Heavensward, who's really cool now. He was lame for like a whole year, and now he's awesome, and now I'm switching classes.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll take him out for a spin later too. But I'm going to focus on the Rad Mage.
Yeah.
So
Right on. So Final Fantasy 14, I think when we were at Square Enix covering 15, they called 14 a fat pillar of the company at this point, which is
Well, I believe it.
funny terminology.
I mean, after the disaster that was the original launch, and
Yeah.
they had so much riding on that game, and it's been years and years, and people still love it. Again, one of the sticking points has always been like the flow of combat and the global cooldown for me. A little slower, feels a little stiffer than other games, but I don't know if that's gonna. It seems quicker this time around, but I don't know
Yeah.
that. Let's wait till I get into the dungeons if I start going to sleep.
And 14 is your favorite Final Fantasy released since...
Oh wow. So 15's out.
Correct.
13 definitely is out, and all the other
See,
13s.
even thinking about it that
12,
way is
nope.
weird for me.
He said he wanted me to go back.
No, I
so-
know. I'm just saying, like, because of its status, both like 14 and 11 just are different games.
Sure, I
for
agree.
me.
I don't count them as mainline games, but Hanson's doing
I think
some kind of
Joe
exercise
does.
here.
I think Joe considers it. If you're ranking Final Fantasies, you would include them. It'd be weird not to. So we're going back, Dan.
Since 10, at least.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Stacking it up. Cool. So you're writing up impressions for the site?
Absolutely. I don't know when they're going to be ready. It's going to be a while.
Yeah,
To be honest, that is a game that takes
kind of a big game.
A considerable amount of time to play.
And Darkest Dungeon is taking even more time?
Darkest Dungeon is proving daunting, as it should.
What is this?
So, okay, we're getting into this now. We're just going right into it. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Darkest Dungeons DLC, the Crimson Court. So this is an area of the game that ostensibly was locked away and hidden during your first adventures there. You can play it alongside the current content offering, so you can start a whole new file, and you'll be thrust right into it. It is basically the courtyard where all of the upper crust used to socialize, a bunch of decadent hedonists, getting drunk and enjoying other pleasures of the flesh in this outside area, right? And
Be detailed.
they were the worst.
Darkest
They were
Dungeon.
like the worst of the worst when the whole other stuff with the Darkest Dungeon went down, right? They were too good for this whole like spelunking, trying to dig up ancient occult artifacts. They were just the decadent high society types. And then one day, this countess showed up, right, and started mingling with the crowd. And basically, you get a Mask of the Red Death scenario going on here, where this disgusting plague, the Crimson Curse, is just tears its way through all these high society types, creating grotesque mutations of insect and human.
Insect.
Yes, this is an insect-based expansion. You will come to hate.
The classic video game
well, let me
mold.
tell you-
You always eventually get to the insect.
But it makes sense here. Hang on, it makes sense here. Like this is mosquitoes transmitting the blood disease
Sure.
and all kinds of stuff like this. The courtyard,
And everyone knows everybody who gets malaria turns into an insect.
it creates an absolutely
That's been my
awful
experience.
and oppressive mechanic that leans on you during the course of the game, whether you want to go into the courtyard or not. If you get people with the blood disease, they essentially turn into vampires. They need the blood. They need to find blood vials or they will waste away. But if you can catch them in their craving phase and supply them with blood, then they go into a bloodlust state where they deal significantly more damage.
Oh,
But
boy.
you have to manage. It's another disease that you cannot remove, as far as I know. Maybe after I beat the courtyard, I'll be able to do that. But for now, it's just another oppressive resource you need to manage. Like, oh my gosh, I have like 7 people who all have the disease. I can't put them in groups together because they might transmit it to each other. I can't have them in the same place in town or they might transmit it to each other. And in all dungeons, you have a chance to run into these new Crimson Court enemies, which are the worst thing that can ever happen is they can give you the disease. And then it just spreads like wildfire throughout your troops unless you're very careful.
So Darkest Dungeon is following that mold of already a brutally difficult game, turn-based RPG, and now just ratcheting it up for DLC, just really twisting a knife in your gut.
It's an interesting loop because it's going to be difficult even for veterans because they have to deal with this new mechanic. Like you could go in with your pro squad that has defeated everything and still have to deal with this
Now,
new wrinkle.
one of the things he's not talking about, though, that I think balances that out is the Radiant mode stuff.
And Radiant mode came out before this expansion,
Right.
but if you are coming into Darkest Dungeon now, that is the mode you need to play on. It is a little bit easier and a little bit quicker to level up your people, and you can get level 3 and level 4 people immediately off the cart. With
That is
upgrades.
a huge deal. If you haven't played the game, like that is a gigantic.
So they patch in an easy mode.
This is anything but easy, and it will still kill you.
it seems like it takes some of the grind out of the experience.
Huh.
And so that like probably at least in part in preparation for this expansion, knowing that you're going to have this horrible curse running through all your characters, now at least there's a way to kind of get characters back up to speed pretty quickly.
Okay.
This is a good mode, and if you're interested in Darkest Dungeon, and you should be because it's amazing. I got to tell you, this expansion, this DLC, just listening to the story come together with Wayne June and the aesthetics of this game, from characters to locations, it's astonishing how like great they are together. It's like this is like the perfect example of like every element being perfect for the other elements and coming together to create this thing, this Lovecraftian nightmare that I hope never ends.
So you're having a good time with it.
I mean, I'm having a good time, but make no mistake, I am playing on Radiant mode, and it's still extremely challenging. People are dying left and right. The Crimson Curse is a taxing new resource that you have to manage, and the courtyard is enormous, and it obeys different dungeon rules than previous dungeons, which are roguelike, right? The randomized, procedurally generated every time. Courtyard is not. You can go in and out at your will. So
It's always the same layout.
It's enormous, always the same layout, and you can keep sending people in and out of there as you wish, as long as you have courtyard invitations.
Right on.
Interesting.
Well, hey, speaking of, hang on, review coming up on the site? Impressions
I
on the
think we're
site?
going to do impressions, and those should be
Okay.
much sooner than the Final Fantasy ones.
Can't wait. Speaking of brutally hard new games that are out now, Miller, I'd imagine Housemarque's new game is on your radar, Nex Machina.
Yes, but I don't know very much at all about it.
Oh, okay.
I'm eager to see what they're doing. They are at this point, I think, acknowledged masters of the arcade action formula.
Especially if it involves lasers and neon.
Yeah.
That is their recipe.
I mean, I think some people wonder about what it is about these games that are so engaging for their friends. You know, they'll talk to friends who are like really into Super Stardust or Resogun or whatever, and be like, "What is the deal here?" Right? And for me, it's that their games subscribe to a very discrete set of like values,
Yeah.
and very distinct areas and rules that you can then wrap your head around, and within those constraints, maximize your skill. Right?
Yes.
Resogun, for instance, my favorite of them, is always this.
Miller's Resogun fan #1.
Well, I like that game a lot. I think there's a lot of other people who like that game a lot too, though.
I know, but you're like #1, dude.
So, I mean, that's a game. You're always in this like circular environment. The basic structure of like how you move your ship around and what weapons you use, that kind of stuff doesn't really change. And so, what is it about it that like would keep players coming back for hours and hours and hours of like new attempts at getting a higher score? And it's that like everything is so tightly designed and so well balanced that it feels like you're making improvements each time you go in. It feels like you're genuinely learning, you're getting better, your muscle memory is getting better, and you have this what is often a really, really smartly designed system for what determines your end value score, right? Like a combination of time and how many enemies you kill, and how many in Resogun, it's how many survivors you get back. You know, some of that kind of stuff factors in. But it always, once you start to kind of look at it more closely and you understand the game better, there's all this depth there that even in a game that's just kind of a simple arcade game, there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah.
That's my hope for both Nex Machina, and Housemarque actually also has Matterfall coming, which they showed off at E3. And both those games are coming out here very close to each other.
Matterfall seems like a different beast. I mean, I played it. I assume you played it as well.
I did.
At E3, and you're running through environments. It seems like level-based. A surprising amount of mechanics that they keep layering on and layering on and layering on. But if you enjoy, shooting environment or shooting enemies in a sci-fi-like space, I think there's a lot to enjoy. But Nex Machina, actually, I started last night.
Okay.
And it seems like it has all those ingredients that you seem to enjoy from Housemarque games, where it's twin-stick shooter. It's a really bizarre look because it's very Tron-y, very Housemarque-y, but then it's on like, at least starts out on like natural environments, moves on to like ice and lava, and it's this weird kind of mix mash. Like it's the most, I don't know, I want to say less clean take on Housemarque's normal art style.
Sure.
But it's just twin stick shooter, and you're going around trying to save enemies. Eugene Jarvis consulted on it, so it's a little bit Robotron-y in that way, I'd imagine, but I was playing on the easiest difficulty, which they say you should start with as like the default. Brutal. And it's just a high score run in these environments again and again and again as it kind of rotates around this cube where all the levels are laid out on. But I'm still trying to wrap my mind around where's the high score run, which mode should I go to? Because there's a lot buried in there.
There's a threshold you have to cross with a Housemarque game that where you see the magic, right? Like where you get like, oh, okay, so like I have to shoot through these enemies, and like I literally have to like pass through them by using this one skill. And once I start doing that, if I do that all the time, right, then all of a sudden my score is skyrocketing. And that dynamic and where you find that moment of magic in different Housemarque games is at different points.
Yeah,
I think, but it's almost always there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to you to hearing you talk.
I'm
about
definitely going to dig into Nex Machina. I just haven't started playing it yet. So
yeah, no, for sure. It's on PS4 and Steam right now, I guess. But hey, Kyle, you've been great. I love your Tingle input. You're really adding a lot. But would you mind just clapping once?
Yes.
Okay. Goodbye, Kyle Hilliard, and welcome, Matt Burtz.
Hello, sir.
Hello, good to see you. We didn't have you or Miller on during E3, so this is the official mop-up time. And Dan Tech, you're here for a color commentary. Hope you're on board
great.
for that. It's
Yeah,
gonna be great.
I'm always more than willing to offer that.
I feel like the biggest gap in all of our coverage is I got home after E3, then realized, oh crap, I didn't even look at Call of Duty. We never talked about Call of Duty on the podcast, but there was a crazy line for it. People were excited about it.
Yeah, there was that line was pretty much capped like right away at the beginning of the show.
Oh man.
I think Dane, our IT guy, was there and he wanted to go check it out. And he went over there around noon and they're like, yeah, the line's done for the day.
Oh, Jesus. So you and Miller both saw it. What were they showing? How did it look?
They showed off exclusively multiplayer stuff. So I think it was their chance to talk about the ways that their World War II game is trying to kind of revolutionize that dynamic in their minds.
Revolutionize is a strong word, I would argue.
Sounds like an Activision
in
word.
their minds. Yeah, I mean, I think my experience suggests that it is Call of Duty, right? Like it is very familiar. There are a few distinct things that they are doing that I do think are important changes, but I think that a lot of people are going to play it and be like, this is pretty much Call of Duty. This is what I'm
that
used
setting
to.
isn't enough to like pump new blood into it, you don't think?
I think people are stoked about the return to World War
Yeah,
II.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does going back to like the old guns feel different than like the last 3 years of high tech and modern plus weaponry? Like, does it change the gameplay at all in multiplayer, or is it still just like, shoot a guy in the back and just rip a clip into them and
Well,
they go down?
there is a new mode that's going to change up that dynamic that kind of plays more like a Battlefield mode called War, which, they talked about a while ago, but this is the first time we saw it in action. And basically, it's a series of fronts that they try to do a light narrative touch to with cutscenes.
Cutscenes, really?
Yeah. So
Just like Operations last year from Battlefield 1.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, if you have to take out the AA guns that the other team has, and you fail to do so, then you see your planes getting shot down.
Yeah.
Right. It's that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it's instead of just capturing like an MCOM station, or whatever they call it in operations, there's actual objectives, which is cool because you got to get to a certain point and stand out in an exposed area to try to build a bridge to get to the next objective. And then maybe you're going to escort a tank, which feels a little bit more like Brink or Overwatch, where you're escorting this tank through an area.
Okay.
So they are creating like united fronts, which is different for Battlefield, or for Call of Duty. I've often said like you could totally do a colon and call it shot in the back. Like that is the way that game always plays. It's tight, it's circular. People can shoot you from anywhere. Like this is a little bit different experience.
Huh. Are you optimistic about multiplayer?
Maybe. I don't know. I need to spend more time with it. I didn't get hands-on with it like Miller did.
Okay.
They have some light Battlefield elements, but it still feels like it's they're adding divisions, which is like their new class system.
Okay.
So you still make career progression overall, but in addition, you progress through these different divisions that are rifle specialists or submachine gun specialists, and they're all named after actual like World War II divisions.
Oh, okay. That's kind of cool.
And then along with those divisions, then the third thing, other than you got your war mode, you got divisions, you also have now taking a cue from games like Destiny. They have a social space now that you're
how
moving
is
through.
that? Because I remember Dan, when you
you-
visited the studio for the feature, you were very curious how this would work as well, right?
I did not get to see it. I just had it described to me. Did you actually see it?
No, we're given very broad strokes about the shared social space that players would
Yeah.
spend time together and show off together. And
Yeah,
It
you
sounds
can
kind of like Planet Side, because you can sit out there and try out different weapons and test new attachments before you go into battle, which I like.
Yeah, and you can do like 1v1 duels from headquarters, which I think is a smart idea. Anything that lets you kind of do something meaningful while you wait in a social space is good, right? Because inevitably, if you're starting to get involved enough in a game that you're like grouping up with people, you always have like the two guys who are 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late, and you got to kind of wait around. And so you're either just hanging out in the social space chatting, or there's some sort of minor gameplay thing you can engage with here, right? And so here you have a firing range where there's target shooting you can do. You have 1v1 duels. You have a way to, apparently they're letting you like prestige publicly Sort of the
What does
idea.
that mean?
The idea is that
Ascend
there's
to the
gonna-
heavens?
kind of
You get
right.
a parade.
I think
like
the
a-
idea is
like
that
a
there's going to be
Showdown
like a
little
lookout
rec-
that you
yeah.
walk up to, and the prestige officer is like up there. And so instead of it just being a thing you do in your menus,
You
it's
take
now-
the long walk and shake
Yes.
hands,
Yeah.
kiss a nurse.
You've been baptized into the Call of Duty family,
I think
like
that's the idea.
and you have your own customized avatar for the first time.
Yeah.
You can pick your race and your outfits.
Is it
and
really the first? No.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it is.
Really?
I mean, you can pick your outfits before.
Yeah.
but
Okay.
Picking like depends how deep you're talking about dialing
Yeah.
down, because you could always. What Hanson said is accurate, I believe. You can pick some elements, but
I could have
Yeah,
sworn.
you
even
could-
with
you could put
Ghost,
your-
I want to say
Your tags on and everything, but there was
Okay.
never a place to like go show off your gear. You know what I mean? You were never in
Right.
a lobby space that was 3D.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand. Is it just a place to wait or a place to kill time? What is the ultimate goal of this place?
They described it as being the entryway and the exit way to your game session. The idea that you would come here, you would meet up with people in the social space, kind of hang out. You would sort of peacock from that space, right?
they probably
And walk
gonna-
around.
I would imagine they're
Um,
going to make it so you open your crates there, so you'll get a nice little message that says, "Dan just opened golden long rifle." Boom, 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 and then everyone's going to be like, "I want to buy crates."
Don't you want?
Because
it?
MMOs have
Yeah.
used this concept for years to get people
to remind people that like, ooh, I could get a
That's
a
right.
special flashy gold
And then
thing
just
right now.
right after you see that, it's like sale pops up right in front of your face, and you
Yeah.
buy like 10 crates.
Why isn't Eisenhower saluting me?
I know, right?
The HQ though, to be clear, they were very clear on the point that it was like a distinct actual place. It's meant to be like 6 miles inland from Normandy.
Okay.
So this is an actual like
And it's allied.
yes,
no
it's
access.
it's the Allied HQ.
Sorry, Nazis.
Yeah.
And that's where you are at. And so I think there are things that they implied that they're still going to be talking about related to HQ, but it's a big deal for them.
Yeah.
So speaking of big deals, I have a quick question. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you mentioned how you go through the divisions now.
Yeah.
Is there still like a loadout system with perks and stuff like that, or is it
Each division has specialized perks
Okay, so it's still
and weapons. They're kind of the divisions are basically built around weaponry. It sounds like there isn't like a
Some-
medic class or support class.
Okay.
It's like there's the SMG class and
Right.
shotgun and explosives and sniper rifles.
So it's more like just taking like the classes, the weird classes they had in the future tech, and applying that to a label. Like, here's the guy that shoots the arrow thing, and here's the grenade launcher person. I don't know. I have to take a look. I was wondering about for like loadout points.
I didn't get to see
Is
it
there
in
a point
action.
system still where I can like put an SMG and like put a stock on it for 1 point, or
I didn't get
Yeah,
I didn't get to that level of
Every
depth with
class
it either.
has different attachment capabilities, I think. So certain classes you're going to be able to use more specialized ones around sniper rifles, or
Right.
the other class will have SMG focused ones.
okay.
Is it just multiplayer they showed? There's no single player demo?
That's all they showed at the show, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Tack already got to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw some single player, yes,
Yeah. And you said it was Saving Private Ryan.
in a good way, yes.
There we go. All right. Real quick, Bert's a game you were super excited about in that first person space, Hunt Showdown.
Yeah, so out of the blue,
Very
like
under the radar.
we got a Crytek appointment and it wasn't a VR game, which I was excited about, because they've been doing Robinson the Journey and the
That's
Climb and
right.
stuff like that. So this is a bunch of the guys that are on the OG Crisis teams. So
Weird. But this game, it started out as like ex-Vigil guys with Crytek USA, right? And it seems like they rebooted this Hunt concept.
yeah, everything's a little bit different.
Okay.
Before it looked like a PvE Left 4 Dead kind of game,
Yeah.
and now it's evolved into like this weird hybrid that kind of reminds you a little bit of Evolve, a little bit of the Dark Zone and the Division, and then like the Battle Royale free for all.
That's a weird combo.
It is.
But it was fun?
It's gorgeous. I didn't get to play it.
Oh, okay.
But it definitely has a level of polish that you don't normally see on the Battle Royale games. I don't know how it's going to work in practice, but it seems like a cool idea. So the setup is basically you're grouped into 5 pairs. So you're going to play this thing co-op. You could play single player, they said, but it's really hard.
Okay, so you got one buddy.
You have one buddy, and you're trying to hunt down this monster in this like end of the Victorian era. Some evil was unleashed on Earth. Blah blah blah.
And it's New Orleans, at least in the video that I watched. I don't know
No,
if every
it's
map
not.
is.
I don't think it's named anything. Like,
Oh,
it's
really?
Just like
Okay.
a random area, and there's only one map right now.
Okay.
So there's a 1 kilometer region where you guys are all unleashed, and you're looking for clues to hunt down some monster. And the one we saw was this crazy, fast, giant tarantula that was really freaky when you got into the barn with it.
Really?
But you're hunting for clues before you can get to the monster, and everybody's out there at the same time looking for clues.
There's only one monster.
There's one monster that you're hunting, but there's a bunch of AI enemies that are all over the place.
Zombies and stuff.
Yeah, zombies and like wolves and all kinds of stuff.
Dantak is shaking his head so hard that his head actually spun around 3 times. What is your concern, Dan?
The concept is baffling to me. Like you team up to take the thing down, and then it turns into a. I mean, we haven't gotten to this yet, so you should probably just explain the game first.
So then you fight each other.
So eventually, one of the teams finds all the clues, finds out where this monster is. You kill it, and then you have to banish it. And when you banish it, this like broadcast goes out that everybody knows your location at that point, and everybody's hunting after the bounty for this monster. So at that point, they know where you are, and they want to take that bounty and escape with it because that's where you get all the gold.
And it seems less gamey than Evolve. Like it didn't seem like glowing footprints that you're following, at least from the video.
There is a detective vision that you're going to kind of, but it's
really?
more based
Okay.
around the clues than the monster itself. Once you know where the monster is, you go in there and you don't know where it is.
Yeah, it's a little more atmospheric. A little
Yeah,
more.
it's a really creepy game. Yeah, it's got that horror vibe that a lot of the survival games don't.
So then when you're fighting each other,
Then it's a free for all. Then like everybody's kind of coming after you. There are supply drops that are kind of sprinkled around the area that you can get. Like booby traps and stuff like that. So maybe your idea is going to be like, I'm going to booby trap all the doors if they don't see me, and when they leave after the banishment timer is up and try to extract, we'll kill them that way. Or everybody just goes guns blazing at these people.
yeah. So you called it one of the most interesting games of the show, and Dantak, it seems like you're just taking this is too much of a kitchen sink philosophy.
No, I'm completely bewildered, and it's like I get it. Okay, so you got the that element of the game with the supply drops, and you're killing other players. We've got that.
We know
right?
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
we know that very well. Attaching some sort of like mystery survival horror element to that is just like so bizarre to me, and it could be awesome. Granted, it's just like this seems like 2 very different ends of the spectrum, like a survival horror game where you hunt down the enemy, and then you have a battle royale game. These are 2 different games to me coming together. I know, as you said, you think it looks cool. That's awesome.
In practice, I don't know how it's going to be in practice. The thing that you don't get a sense of when you watch a demo that other people are doing, where everybody's has very intended actions. They script these things.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like the first time everybody sees another group, they're just going to kill them? And then there's like 2 groups left in like 40 minutes. Like no one's going to watch a stream where there's 2 people at opposite ends of a 1 kilometer map that.
So there's
right.
Well, I guess instead of like the circles and battlegrounds, it'll just be the monster kind of luring everybody to run to the same place. So in theory, that could work, right?
And the incentive to keep other players alive when you meet them before the monster is so that they can help kill the monster.
Exactly. Right? Or the monster is surrounded by usually like a base where there are a lot of enemies, so it can be tough to infiltrate. So I don't know if they think most people are going to work together, but games like people are just going to
kill everyone on site, regardless.
Yeah, just like the Dark Zone. Like it's so maddening to go in the Dark Zone in the Division.
Yeah,
because especially alone, people are like, that guy. Like,
right,
I'm going to take his stuff. So we'll see.
All right, but it's
the
an
concept
interesting one.
is interesting. But
do you know what the release date is? It's been
no,
so
they said
long.
they're going to do a public. I don't know if it's going to be early access or a alpha or a beta. They're going to do something in the coming months.
Oh, crazy.
And then we'll know more about it at that point.
So are there like loadouts, or do you just use whatever you find on the map? Is there like leveling, or do
there is so the way that the currency works is as you collect gold for getting these bounties, you can invest it in skills, and those skills transfer down the bloodline of your character. So your character dies, but then the predecessor, or your ancestor shows up. Blah blah blah. But the weapons and all that, from what I understand, you're gathering those in the map.
All right.
Huh. How bizarre. We should talk a little bit about VR at E3 2017.
Do we have to?
Look,
Is
I
there
understand
a
it's a pain in
compelling
the
reason
ass.
that we should talk
It's
about
a pain in the ass to listen to talk about, but I think it is notable that it seemed like trajectory was going up and up, relatively buzz in the industry, and this E3, it has plateaued or has started to dip, or maybe just the balloon of hype has deflated and it's become reasonable. Like this is now the new role of VR in the industry.
I was, prior to when the big headsets came out, I was nowhere near a proponent of VR. And then I spent a bunch of time with both headsets right when they came out because I was working on some review stuff around it. And I really became a believer in the power of the tech, of it being really offering some sort of fundamentally new entertainment experiences. it's not when I say that I don't want to talk about VR at E3, it doesn't have anything to do with the idea that like I don't think this tech is valid or I don't think it could be good. It's that the show this year didn't make a case for it. And
Yeah.
it seemed like a weird year not to do that.
100%. It seemed like everyone was bracing for when are we going to be convinced that VR is a thing? And Sony was pretty soft.
They were very soft, especially for having launched a really expensive peripheral. I mean, relatively speaking,
And also
not
that's-
as expensive as the other VR headsets, but
Yeah.
compared to other for console gamer to get a PSVR headset, that would be a big investment, right? And there just wasn't very much there. I mean, they had a few small games that they showed off for it, but nothing that wowed, nothing that was like, oh wow,
Yeah.
we're gonna get to do this now in VR. This this amazing thing that that was not there at this show.
And that's what we were kind of sold. I wrote our VR What's Coming in Year 2 story, and I interviewed Sean Layton from Sony.
Oh, okay.
And he was very adamant, like, you guys are going to see big AAA games at this thing. You're going to see the investment. The install base is there. We're fully investing in this. And then you see a super massive, a couple
They're making
basically
like
thrown
3
together
VR
VR games.
Yeah, it's like what Bravo Team, Hidden Agenda, and Inpatient. Or there's
Yeah, I don't think Hidden Agenda is VR, but
Oh, is that right? Oh,
I think
damn.
that's just their more cooperative, choice-driven game.
Oh, okay.
You see that. You see the Bethesda stuff that we already knew was coming that I got hands-on time with. Really limited. It's really clunky. It's
This is like Doom and Skyrim.
Doom, Skyrim, Fallout 4.
Oh, wow. And it's like teleport to walk?
Teleport to walk, yeah, or like hop jumps in the Doom one. You have a couple different options for locomotion, but none of them solve the fundamental problem of first-person experiences in VR. It still
Yeah.
feels really weird.
Ugh.
We saw the 4A games, Arctica 1, which is another game that like the guns feel great, just like Robo Recall, but you're moving, teleporting, and it just kind of kills the atmosphere in these spaces, like.
And at that point, if Sony or Bethesda is not swinging for the fences, who is?
Well, I to be fair, I think Bethesda's. I mean, at least they're moving big games onto there. As Bert says, I don't know how well those translations are coming out.
And
But-
it's tough to say after 5 to 10 minutes with
Sure.
the game too. Let's
But jankier
Be
than you
honest here.
expected on
Yes.
the early demo.
But from other places, I just wasn't seeing the investment. I mean, most of the big companies have a couple small games. Like Ubisoft has a couple small games that look interesting. But again, a year into, we had Vive and Rift come out now several months back. You had PSVR now has been out for at least a few months. And it was just odd to me. I really thought this was going to be the year, especially given that we had, in the lead up to those launches, those E3s had way more VR stuff, way more focus on that tech than I think I saw this year. I don't know what your experience
and
was.
people are
Birds.
starved for content. I mean, Farpoint is on the MPD top 20 list.
That was wild.
Farpoint's on there. People are that game is super average. It feels like a 1998 shooter.
Yeah.
People are starved for that stuff. The people that bought it, and there just isn't content that's there.
And to reiterate, like the people who bought it, I think are people who, like me, realize like have messed around with it prior to buying, and we're like, wow, this is really cool, right? For anybody who hasn't had a chance to get in and play one of the good VR games yet, when you do, you get it. Like it's like this can be really cool, and I can see where this could go and become really awesome games.
And then you say to most people, but will you pay an extra $500 to $700 for
Don't
it?
be ridiculous.
And almost everybody says no.
There's
Exactly.
no world.
Where there is no experience that demands that kind of price point. You know what I mean?
It'd be even the greatest game of the last 10 years. I don't know
See,
if I'd pay $500 for it.
I think that if there was one of the greatest games of the last few years, even if there was like a few of those on these systems, I think that wouldn't be enough.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's happened yet.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we have the, like what Halo was for the Xbox yet. We don't have that
Yeah,
experience
no system sellers.
that is getting people like, oh man, I just have to get a VR headset because I really want to be able to like dig in on this experience. It was so cool, such a great like experience, and I can't have that any other place.
Also, speaking of Halo, I guess PSVR Golem from former Halo developers. That wasn't even at the show this year. I was
No, I
expecting
didn't
that to
see
be
that one there.
redebuted
No.
and whatnot. But I think it is telling, just looking at Microsoft's vantage point, where last year when they announced Project Scorpio, they're like, this thing's going to be VR capable in case we want to do something in the future. It's VR prepped, ready to go. And then a year later, checking it again, no mention of
It's
VR.
the smartest thing they did.
Absolutely. At some point, just realized like, no, let's not lean on.
I mean,
this
let
pillar.
the market mature. There's no reason to spend a bunch of your capital on it.
Yeah, definitely. So hey, on a lighter front, Miller, some of the indies games. You're Mr. Indie guy.
Yeah, it was a good show for indies. There were a bunch of really good indies. It was maybe not the best show for people evidencing support for indies, which disappointed me.
Right.
I think I've become used to, in particular, Sony really being a stalwart ally of the indie movement and making those games a centerpiece of both their press conferences and their booth. And that didn't seem to really be the case
it certainly
this year.
felt like Microsoft picked up the slack. You don't think they were bringing in
Microsoft
the
had a
indie
lot.
front?
Microsoft had some good stuff, but a lot of the strong indies I think were more scattered around this year than I was used to. And so once I got a good picture of them, I was really pleased with what I was seeing. I think people are doing some very cool things, and there were just several individual titles that it's like, I really want to play that game. That looks awesome.
Give us some of the biggest. Which ones are you most excited about?
Some of them are things that have kind of been percolating for a little while. Games that kind of were talked about coming out of like GDC, places like that, but that I think have continued to make strides and are getting more attention at this year's show. Stuff like, one of my favorites of the show was, but the first time that I had gotten to see it was Where the Water Tastes Like Wine.
Yeah, what
That
is
game looks
that?
cool.
That's a really cool, like, narrative-based game. You've lost your soul in a game of cards, and you're now cursed to wander Depression-era America, gathering the stories of your fellow, like, travelers, and spreading them out across the land, and in so doing, kind of learning about the human condition and just having interesting story vignettes that you run into as you travel.
Now, Joe is going to bust through the podcast room door if I say this, but this is a walking sim, right?
Not exactly.
Okay.
It does have a
Oh,
visual
please.
novel experience to it, right? Where it is very focused on stories, but the main gameplay loops around like, okay, you have these little story vignettes that you encounter at different places as you're just kind of wandering across the state lines of America. But then you sit down around the fire with these individual travelers, and they want particular kinds of stories. And so you have this kind of, you've got the stories you've collected. It's almost your currency. And if they want to have a romantic story and you have that pleases them, and they're more likely to share their story with you. And so you grow in that way. So that one was I thought very cool. I liked a game called Minute quite a lot.
Yeah, we talked about it with Ben Reeves on the podcast already. Actually.
Okay,
That
well
does sound cool.
I won't belabor it too much, but I thought that was a really neat little game, all about kind of a Legend of Zelda style game, but you have 60 seconds to live.
Love it.
That one was really neat. It's another one that I'm stoked about. That's I think still fairly can be called an indie game is Battle Chasers.
Yeah.
Joe Madureira's like new kind of comic inspired fantasy adventure game, role playing game. That one looks really great.
Hey, in that vein, did you see? Is it Griftlands from Clay? That new RPG?
I didn't see that.
It was at the PC Gaming Show. It also looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it looked amazing.
Yeah,
Cool.
Darkest Dungeon style combat.
We couldn't tell exactly what the combat was like. It looked turn-based, but
Yeah.
can't be completely sure. We had that one snippet. It was like 0.5 seconds of combat, so we don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it looked very promising. It was like almost like a Don Bluth style space thing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's definitely one to keep your eye on.
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones? I like Semblance was a really interesting little game. It's a puzzle platform set in a world of Play-Doh.
Wait, which Play-Doh?
Play-Doh.
Oh, okay.
Not
all
Plato,
right.
the
sure.
philosopher.
Play-Doh.
Although a game about the fictional world of Plato would also be interesting, but no,
Get
this
a load
is,
of this cave.
yeah. Look at this cave here. It's sort of the idea that all of the platforms that you interact with, you are yourself a little kind of blob, and named Squish, and Squish goes through the world and can actually manipulate the platforms by bouncing and dashing into them to change their shape and size and things like that, so that you can get to your objectives.
Okay. So just beating Play-Doh pillars into shape so you can jump on them?
Yeah, kind of. And then there's
right.
things that like create trampolines that you're sort of bouncing off of, and it was quite clever, actually, I thought.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was another game I really thought was kind of interesting was Aegis Defenders, which is a sort of Miyazaki-inspired. It's a kind of a mashup game. It's sort of 16-bit action RPG with either trade-off play between two characters, or you can play it co-op. And each of your characters has different abilities, and it's sort of side-scrolling action most of the time, but then you get to these like tower defense sequences where you've got to hold off a bunch of monsters, and you have different abilities. You can set up different types of towers in different places around the stage and keep the monsters away, and then it kind of goes back into the flow of a puzzle action platform kind of experience.
Right on. We have a roundup on the site, right, about some of the coolest indies?
That's a big one.
It was a really big one. I was pleased that we were able to see as many as we did and pick out some of our favorites, and that's now complete. You can go check out some of the stuff that we thought was cool.
Awesome. Well, hey, that is basically everything. Also, Starlink from Ubisoft is a weird little thing.
Starlink, just to briefly speak to it, I mean, Starlink is really cool tech.
It is as Twitter put it, it is No Man's Skylanders.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's tech that is really fascinating, and as a toy collector myself, there is a certain appeal there to the idea. The game itself didn't sell itself to me very well. I mean, it's a sort of like space shooter kind of experience where you've got your starship, but you're on your actual controller. There's a mount, and you build your starship on that mount. And every time you change out wings or pilots or weapons or even the ship itself, it instantly changes in the game. And so, if you have a Gatling gun on, but you need a flamethrower, then you change that out instantaneously.
Who needs buttons?
Yep.
And with that, with Starlink down, we've now officially covered every game at E3 2017.
All of them.
Yeah, and we can finally move on to some emails coming up next, where we're going to finally answer some questions about E3 2017. So stay tuned for that. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We have some great emails from the community. People sent in their wonderful emails to podcast@GameInformer.com. I read them all.
All of them.
They were all good.
Okay.
Some were great. We've taken the great ones, got them here, and now we're going to choose from the great, the very best one.
Now, when you say great ones, are you going to put ones in there that are just like, do you guys like fish? Or
There is one of those in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a variant of
Lucky
Do You
you,
Like
Dan.
Fish?
You can finally talk about your favorite
No,
fish.
he always like, there's
Hang
been
on.
some really.
I was the guy who then argued against giving the fish guy email of the week, and Dan Tagg's chanting fish over there.
How do you...
I thought he was blazing new trails.
So when you give the intro that you just did, but
Yeah.
then you have the fish email, isn't everybody else who didn't get on like, man, my question was way better than the fish email?
I constantly feel bad for not being able to read off everyone because they're all fantastic, but we're going to choose our absolute favorite and ship them out something real nice. So remember every email, you guys. Don't
All
forget,
right.
no matter what.
I'm ready.
We can only ship within the continental United States. Chuck from Gorham,
That's
Maine writes in, this isn't even a question. He just says, I want to thank you, Dan, JV, the Jeffs, Leo, not Wade, Leo, he writes in, for absolutely amazing E3 coverage. Loved it. Good job, guys. Home team rocked it.
Yeah, way to go,
You
guys.
guys
Thank
did
you.
rock it.
What is not known is how much those guys do to like support those of us who are out in Los Angeles.
They're playing support roles.
They are doing awesome stuff to like enable us to go to all the appointments we go to, and they pull together like trailers and screenshots for us and keep the ship running while we are otherwise occupied.
Absolutely. Good job, guys. Rudy wrote in, I recently read an article where someone working in the gaming industry wrote that this year's E3 felt like us versus them. They complained that with so many consumers being allowed in, there was a tension in the air dividing those who worked in the field from those who don't, and it made the long lines run out of control. Being a first-time E3 attendee, I don't agree at all. While the lines were terrible, I totally expected that going in. In terms of the us versus them attitude, I was incredibly lucky to meet tons of people from in and outside the industry, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. I was even able to talk and get pictures with Jeff Keighley, Patricia Somerset of Zelda fame, friend of the show, the hosts of Nintendo Treehouse, and the esports team, and even you lovely folks from the GI show. So yeah, just first time attendee. if you attended E3 for the first time, I'd love to hear your take. If you were disappointed in any way, if you feel like the ticket was totally worth the money, anything you didn't expect. But we got one thumbs up. Did you guys notice any weird divide?
I thought there was a little divide.
Really? Why do you say that?
Well, I don't know if divide is the right word. I just think that the show ran different than it normally does.
Outside of just lines.
Yeah. I mean, for people who are on that side of the experience, certainly the lines were really bad, and I felt bad for people who were like, come to E3, you spend a bunch of money to get a ticket, and then you spend that much time in a line. But that is, to be fair, kind of what I think a lot of people have come to expect out of a convention. The other side, for those people who were kind of working the show, it felt more disorganized in some senses than it normally would be, because I think the people who were running booths had to split their attention, right? Like you were, in many cases, you had kind of two distinct areas. You had this kind of like public-facing section of playable kiosks, and then you had another section for showing stuff off to buyers and press and stuff like that. And so I think I had more times where I arrived for an appointment and things were just a little bit up in the air still.
Don't you think there's always that? I mean, it didn't feel outside of the crowds that different to me. There's always so many people there that basically just come across as consumers and feel like consumers. There's always that little bit of a split between, hey, here's where you can stand in line for a long time. There's always long lines at E3 versus, hey, here's like where you can make an appointment. If you remember the media, you can get a behind closed doors demo type of thing. Didn't it just feel like an extension of that?
It didn't to me.
Okay.
But I'm just one person. And by the way, I'm not even like saying like, oh, I hate having the public there.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally get the mystique of that show, and people are constantly talking about E3 as this sort of like state of the union for video games, because that is what it is, right? If you're really into games, it makes sense that you'd want to go check that out. And I don't begrudge anyone that. It's simply that, like, I think it does change the dynamic of what that show is about a little bit, because originally the intent was for it to be a trade show, for it to be a place for people who work in that industry to be talking about what was happening in that industry.
Yeah.
And so it was different than the dynamic of how it has previously been, in my experience.
Yeah, for sure.
If only there was like another conference that has media and consumers there that they could look at to inspiration to figure out a format.
I'm sure it's going to be Paxified or Gamescomified throughout the years to come. It's just weird growing pains right now
Yeah,
for
I think
public
so.
E3. Glenn Kleiber from Hawaii says, hello, GI crew. What was the biggest disappointment from this year's E3 for you guys? Does anything stand out as especially disappointing?
Microsoft, no new first-party announcements. That was the big glaring one for me. Like their first-party catalog is pretty weak. It's the big guns like Halo and Gears are kind of treading water, while the other stuff really isn't elevating. I that's not to say State of Decay 2 and Sea of Thieves didn't have pretty good shows, but
It's been a couple years.
You look beyond that and it's like, well, what else is coming?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Does Crimson Skies count? Original Xbox game?
I don't know if that counts,
That's an announcement that you can play it on an Xbox One.
Yeah.
That's a good one. One that stood out for me is thinking about just being on the cover story trip for Uncharted Lost Legacy. They were teasing. They're like, oh, we're going to have some pretty crazy set pieces in this game. We understand maybe people were not as satisfied as they could have been from the set pieces from Uncharted 4. Like, there's going to be a big focus here. And so, like, this is the place to show it and get into that behind closed doors demo. I was fully expecting it. And, like, it's a cool sequence, but it's just kind of a car crashing through an environment again. I really wanted a novel Naughty Dog set piece from that, and they didn't really deliver.
For me, it was, I thought both Microsoft and Sony, I'm used to getting a little bit more of a human touch out of their press conferences. And I thought, while both of them did a good job of like keeping the focus on games, which has, in some previous years, has been a big problem, it felt ultimately like we were kind of just like getting, okay, and now this trailer, and now check out this trailer.
Yeah.
And guess what, everybody? We have another trailer, and now we have a gameplay sequence, but nobody's playing it. It's just a video.
What about
And
the
now
Darwin
another trailer.
Project announcer that was on stage for Microsoft screaming out over the headset? Is that the human touch you're looking
I mean,
for?
I think I like it more at those press conferences. I know that it's dangerous. It leads, human error always leads to unexpected things, and nobody who's running one of those press conferences wants unexpected things to happen. It is way easier to queue up a video and have it flow and have it be presented exactly the way that you want it to be. So I get the reasoning behind that, but it's disappointing to me. I think one of the most interesting things about the gaming industry are the people who are making the games.
Yeah.
And when you have this big public stage, to not put more of those people out there to talk about the products that they're making, talk about the artwork that they're making, that was a little disappointing to me.
I can see that, yeah. Dan, home team?
Yeah. I like the trailer format, by the way. I don't want to hear somebody come out and drone about, like, a carefully rehearsed statement about how much passion he put into the game when he was, whatever.
But anyway, to be clear, you did lose your heart in a card game a while back, though.
Yeah,
right?
I did. And I'm still traveling through Depression-era America.
Well, depress us now. What brought you down to these three?
What brought me down? No Bloodborne 2. That brought me down a lot.
There we go.
Actually, forget the Bloodborne 2. No From Software stuff at all. That was a big downer. Yeah. When I know they're working on, 3 different games right now? So where are they? Come on. Get out
of the woodwork, buddy.
Yeah, I guess along those lines, it was very, for me, one of the big things about E3 is the surprises. And there was
there weren't a lot of surprises.
There was none, right?
What?
Shadow of the Colossus.
I don't know. I think there was actually quite a few.
Yeah,
new IPs.
Evil,
there was a decent amount of new IP.
Yeah, all right, that's fair.
2D Metroid and Metroid Prime 4. That's pretty.
I know people are going to say, you begged for a 2D Metroid, now you got one. Be happy, and I'm like, nah, I wish it wasn't a remake. So it's
you're one of those guys.
Anthem, Skull and Bones, Hidden Agenda. There was a lot of new. A Way Out. There was new stuff.
Dan, I think you just have to look in the mirror and realize.
I guess I do.
I'm actually with Dan on this one.
Really?
I do agree. There were a few cool surprises, but compared to other years' shows, I didn't come away feeling like it would. For me,
at year 4 of the console cycle. This is usually when there is no new IP.
Well, I think for me it was a matter of going to this show. I felt like almost everything I saw was a little better than I expected it to be. Right when I first, for instance, one of the case in point games in that vein for me was the Mario plus Rabbids game. Right.
Yeah.
The moment I heard about that, I was like, nope, that's a bad idea. I don't like that. And then I went and played it, and it's cute, it's fun. It's a good game. At least at this phase, what I saw of it was a good game, and that was sort of the arc of almost everything I saw at the show this year. Was like, oh, this is totally solid. This is a game I'm now a little more looking forward to than I thought I would be. But there weren't a lot of things in terms of actual stuff that we were going to be playing sometime. Anthem's a long way out, right? There's a lot of things we don't know about Anthem. There weren't a lot of things that just totally was like, oh, I just didn't even know about this thing, and now it's one of my most anticipated games. I didn't have that experience.
I think A Way Out kind of falls in that category for me, where it's here's something I didn't expect. I knew Joseph's new game was probably going to be there, but I didn't expect a bizarre split screen co-op experience from there. So that kind of falls in there for me. But yeah, I think it's fair. Real quick, also just have Battlefront 2 focusing on multiplayer during the press conference instead of single player, which seemed like the most interesting aspect of that game. It was disappointing.
And how
there's better ways to show multiplayer. I'll say that.
Oh my god!
How odd to choose.
It's
for mostly at E3 you have a bunch of adult gamers, right? Why choosing Naboo?
It was really curious.
Very, very curious.
Oh, they were appealing.
It looked awesome.
Yeah. But you have a bunch of new. You have 2 movies to pull from that weren't in the last game.
I've been told that the prequels are much beloved and never to talk crap about them again. I've heard this a lot.
Was that in your review with Reiner?
That was feedback from the EA press conference when we were talking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. People are really into Naboo and the prequels. And
Game changers and prequels neck and neck.
The game
it's
changers,
a beautiful thing.
That's right.
All right. Wow. Also, real quick, disappointed that Alpha Dream is working on a remake of that Mario and Luigi RPG for 3DS. I wanted Nintendo to get their developers on Switch already. Leave that effing thing behind. Ooh. Anyways, John from Atlanta, another downer. Hey guys, what games or studios were not at E3 that you had hoped to see?
Hey, we just talked about this.
For me, it's Rocksteady, Retro Studios, and the 30 plus games Nintendo put on a poster back in January. So what notable absences really popped for you guys outside of Bloodborne 2?
Well, Red Dead, everybody was like, where was Red Dead? Rockstar doesn't do E3 really. It's super rare that they do it, right? Yeah. So that didn't surprise me. And Cyberpunk, the CD Projekt's new game, they kind of said we're a ways away still. The one I thought maybe we'd get would be a new Bethesda Game Studios game.
Yeah.
Because that showcase certainly could have used one.
Pete Hines seemed depressed up there by
really,
the end.
It feels like it really felt during that there was that game that was supposed to be there, and then they pulled it at the last minute.
Yeah, I wondered about that
because it really felt abrupt. Hey, Wolfenstein, bye.
And there were a lot of rumors too that we were going to be seeing that. And
I wonder if I think the counterpoint would be there were 2 areas in that thing under construction, that map that they laid out, which they
Evil
showed.
Within and-
Yeah, and so they accounted for those 2 under construction areas, and they showed that a while back. That would be the counter argument, but yes, it did feel like it needed something.
You can change that one little graphic pretty easily to facilitate, Doom VR or whatever one of those things ended up being.
Sure, could be. I could not believe that Media Molecule was not out there with Dreams.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
Lord, get that thing out the door.
I was surprised about that.
It's not going out. It's going away. It's going to be a dream now.
I was also.
I don't think so. I think that game's real.
I think the game is real. I just don't.
I think they're saving it for PSX and a big VR.
I
showcase.
asked somebody at Media Molecule where was this game, and they said, you know what, E3 is not the place to show that thing off. We want a smaller group of people that are a little more focused, that can give it more attention as opposed to like a 5-second demo or something.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I wasn't expecting to see like some big gameplay demo of it, but I kind of was surprised that we didn't see anything from 343.
I thought they'd show like just test
Halo
footage
teaser.
running at 4K or something. Yeah.
Or even just the kind of logo title treatment teaser kind of thing of the next Halo.
They technically showed Master Chief warping in through ones and zeros or whatever in that montage for the Xbox One X, but that was it.
Yeah,
that was shocking. Also, there's not a great place for it or a natural fit because WB doesn't have a press conference, but still crazy that we don't know what Warner Brothers Montreal is working on.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
Really, we were up at that studio years and years
It was a
ago.
long time ago.
Ian Lovek from Virginia says, what interview did you guys have at E3 that you remember fondly? The one with Tim Schafer and Joseph Ferris was amazing. Joseph sounded insanely passionate and maybe a little drunk. Not too drunk. That's just pure passion, baby. But thank you for listening to that interview. That was fun. But is there an interview that really popped for you guys that you did at E3?
Not this year, really.
I think most of my time was really focused on like checking out a game and then moving on to the next game. So I didn't have a lot of like formal interviews. I had a nice sit down with just briefly with Glenn Schofield on the Call of Duty stuff, and he had some cool stuff to say about like why they were going where they were going, and offering up some of like his own personal enthusiasm around doing that, and his excitement to kind of get back to World War II. So I'd maybe point to that, but that was more almost just like a conversation than it was a real interview.
Yeah, for sure. I got to interview Miyamoto again, which is always fun.
Yeah.
And like the interview is exciting, but seriously, I think the most fun part is like sitting down for a couple meals with the team, just like fellow Game Informer editors ahead of time. Be like, okay, we cannot blow this opportunity to talk to Miyamoto. What bases do we cover? What do we squeeze into this 15-minute time slot? And then it was also fun going there, and he remembered us from the New York rapid fire video, which is always nice. Like, oh, Miyamoto remembers us. He made a reference to like, I think we asked about virtual console games on the Switch, and he's like, oh, why don't you get your cups out? Maybe I'll reveal an answer.
So you were in the same room as him during that. Fascinating.
Oh, there was a controversy saying that with that rapid fire interview, there was a conspiracy theorist on Twitter that says we weren't actually in the same room as Miyamoto. So then I responded to him and just tweeted a picture of like a group shot of all of us together. And he's like, all right, stand corrected. But still, it sounded weird. That's just bad audio on our part. Anyways, Caesar Bizarra from Chicago says, unfortunately, there are some people that can't make it to E3. What if during all of E3 week you get on the PSN Store, Xbox Marketplace, or Nintendo eShop and you can play those demos from E3? Obviously, they can't make you download them because that would mean you would keep it forever or download it, but it goes away after the week. But what do you guys think about more companies releasing those E3 demos?
I think the more people that get to play a game before they buy it is a good thing.
Yeah? Hey, look at like Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Like they released that story mode demo, which is, I think, basically the single-player campaign stuff they're showing off at the show anyway. So some companies are kind of walking towards that area.
But as far as like just the E3, sometimes E3 demos are not exactly the most polished products.
That's the problem.
Those are not something I'd want to release to the world without.
And they're not representative of the final game sometimes.
Yeah,
even,
sometimes they're not even in the final game.
Concepts.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that there's a lot of behind-the-scenes logistics of like getting an item onto a store like the PSN store, and like making that downloadable and or purchasable that most of us just don't ever have to deal with. But if you're on the publisher / developer side, you do. And it is all those guys can do a lot of times just to be able to pull their demo together by the night before they have to be having it on the show floor at E3 and get there with it. And so I completely agree with the sentiment
Yeah.
that he's saying there. I think that would be awesome. I do think there are real world challenges for why it doesn't happen.
Yeah, those are not polished demos. Sometimes they don't even work, man.
Yeah, I
And
mean-
there it's just like, whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen.
I think I had about 3 games crash out on me.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just the way it is. These games are, moving targets.
And so many of these demos is when developers are actually playing them, and there's
Right.
situations where it's like, hey, if you look to the left, nothing's
And
finished
if you-
over there.
If
It's
you look to
very
the left, the whole
polished.
game breaks. You have to go
Right.
along a certain path, right?
Yeah, and then even the hands-on stuff, like there's always a developer or PR person next to you be like, hey, there's caveat, this is super rough. And so if you put it out there in the demo, it's just going to get nailed on the internet for every little detail wrong with it. But yeah, it'd be cool. Josh in Vermont, dear GI crew, I'm writing him with a fairly simple question. Am I the only person who was concerned about nothing at the Microsoft E3 press conference was met with as much enthusiasm as original Xbox games being playable on Xbox One? It seems like a lot of the gaming community is caught in a constant state of wanting new games, but also childhood classics. Are we looking backwards too much?
I don't know. I like the
Yes.
this new car reveal. That was
Oh,
The Porsche was the
man.
second
Yeah.
biggest moment.
That was weird, man.
It
was
got more
super
time
weird.
than I think Xbox One got.
Yeah. This thing's a monster. Look
yeah,
at it.
such a great
What
car.
a cool car.
Let
what
me
are,
kiss it.
What are you guys here for again? It doesn't matter. Check out this Porsche.
Turn 10 developer. Stay off stage. Come on, look at this car. I thought the original Xbox thing was a really cool, bizarre twist in there. And it's not like it took up too much time. It
No,
got
it
less
was-
time
yeah,
than
it was
Xbox
fine. It was
short and
360s
sweet.
even.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we're a little bit nostalgic, Josh in Vermont. Let's see. Oh gosh, I didn't get this guy's name, but the question's great. Hey GI crew, after the Xbox One X reveal, Tack said that for a couple $100 more, you could get a PC instead.
That's what I said.
I challenged Dan to build a PC with similar specs as the X for $700.
Okay. Sure. What's his name?
I don't have the name. I forgot to copy and paste that part, but challenge accepted.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean
for
all
us-
of the Oculus Ready VR.
I said it's going to be above
Ones are about
500. It's
Okay,
gonna-
so
like,
$700.
let's
You think you
let's
could make
use 700
something
as a figure.
as powerful as the Xbox One
Let's
X?
find out.
That'd be a good story to post. Hey, you want something equally as powerful? Here's how much it would cost.
But that's 700. The whole point is then the people who are going to fight me on that are going to be like, but that's 700 and not 500. That's why it's a big difference.
It's tough.
You get a lot more value.
Can't
with
win,
the PC.
Tag.
I know. I'm well aware of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you get me that guy's email, I'll
Yeah.
see what I can do.
He says, I know you guys love to give Tack a lot of so I hope you guys give him a hard time for this challenge.
You sure did.
All right,
And
there
let's
we go.
do it. Let's do it.
Done deal. Hey, Ben and the podcast gang. Seth from Portland, Oregon says, so the editors over there seem to have their specialties in the sorts of games they play and review, like Joe and Kim playing RPGs, JV playing dumb indie crap, is what he says. I was wondering, is there a genre or area of gaming that you feel like isn't covered well enough or that you wish somebody could take up as being their thing within the office?
I wish we had more people that played PCs. That's the one thing. Yeah, we have.
Will you fucking play Battlegrounds already?
I have a PC. I'll play.
Yeah,
I've
let's
been
play.
busy.
Well,
I've
let's
been
go.
reviewing
Busy
games.
with what? Raising children? Come on,
Yeah,
let's go.
maybe a little bit of that. But yes, I would love to jump in with you guys. But that's the one thing. Our office is really tilted towards console, so we tend to be late to the party on PC focused stuff. You know, Dan can only bark at the moon so many times, and it's tricky. You know.
Yeah. Leo in the booth, he's a big PC gamer. He's a big Steam guy. That helped us cover a base. But I think Serial was great for really filling like an esports slot that
Yep.
we're missing a fair amount.
I
Because
mean, I would say we're constantly talking about
Yes.
those things,
Yes.
right? The games industry as a whole is sort of in this constant state of flux and evolution of like what's big right now, what can we detect as being something that's going to be like really big for a short period of time and then gone again, right? Like, would we have really needed a dedicated Toys to Life guy? I think it's fair to say probably not, right? But there was a certain
sorry,
point.
Shay, goodbye.
But there was a certain point that was like certainly a huge, big part of the gaming industry, right?
Yeah.
So that's something I think we talk about an awful lot about, like, hey, who can be starting to look more at this stuff and who's really expressing a lot of enthusiasm about this particular genre or this type of game and encouraging that. And when we bring new people on board, I think there's a lot of conversations about like, oh, what kind of stuff do they play?
Yeah. It's exciting to fill those holes for sure.
Yeah.
John from Mississippi, killer question. Hey, GI, got into competitive Smash Brothers Melee about 4 months ago, and I think it might be the best game ever. I think you're correct, actually. I have Neo and Yakuza 0 waiting on the shelf, but I can't pull myself away from Melee. So he's just wondering, which Melee character does everyone on the show main, and what is the chance of Nintendo releasing Melee HD for Switch? The second part, that's a 0%. But young Link. Is anybody else?
Pikachu.
I'm not really a Smash player. Big
Not a
surprise.
Smash player
You
either.
guys, you need to be
Pikachu.
indoctrinated into Smash Brothers Melee. He's probably correct. It's one of the greats. That was my entire college experience, freshman year at least, was just Smash Melee in the dorms over and over and over again. Anyways, Bert from Sacramento, California says, on last week's podcast, JV was talking about how overwhelming it was to begin playing Fortnite with all the complex menus and systems, and stated that developers need to get better tutorials. I definitely agree. What games do you think are a shining example of tutorials done beautifully?
I like Blood Dragon just because it was taking a piss out of every tutorial you've ever done in the modern era.
It gets to the point where it's just like telling you how to jump and do every little
Yeah.
thing, right? And the main character's talking like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
a good
that was
one.
more of an inside joke for people that, can't wait to skip past tutorials,
But still served a purpose at the
Yeah.
same time because it was standalone in that way. I think I brought it up on the podcast before, but pretty sure it was a GDC talk where Blizzard was talking about designing Hearthstone's tutorial, which I think is great. Here's what the Storm View, and it's a great tutorial. But then in that GDC talk, they talked about how influential the Plants vs. Zombies tutorial was. That game is just beautifully simple how it lays things out. And so they saw it as one of the best of all time. So I'll just trust Blizzard that is the best. Dan, anything stand out for you?
I generally dislike tutorials. I like things.
Dark Souls guy dislikes tutorials.
I like things. I like it when you like. I'm okay having a tutorial, but like show it, don't tell it. Like don't be like,
Sure.
now press X to do this. Just like
Don't do what Assassin's Creed did for a good 6 or 7 games where
Right.
you're
Where the entire
4
first half
hours
of the
in.
game.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
yeah, it's
Kelly from Huntington Beach, California. Simple question. Do you think it's possible the Switch would have been anywhere near as successful as it has been so far if Zelda wasn't so good?
No.
No.
All right, there we go. Do you think would we be talking about it in a similar vein
Well,
to the Wii
would
U
there-
at this point?
No.
If
not
it was
necessarily.
literally like there is no Zelda and there's
Yeah.
nothing else there,
Right.
there's no way that system it just
Half
like
as many sales? What
just
are we talking?
like we talked earlier in the show about like Xbox, the original Xbox and Halo, the entire gaming landscape of today would be different if Halo had not come out on Xbox. It just straight up would be. I mean, I would be hesitant to say that Breath of the Wild had that profound of an influence on the broader gaming industry, but
120% attachment rate is pretty good.
the fact that it was there, I think, was one of the biggest reasons that Switch came out of the gate strong.
I mean,
no two ways about
I
it.
don't know if people would be raving about the ability to take snipper clips handheld for
Right?
too long.
Because
Yeah.
like, what else would it have been? You know,
snipper clips.
right? If that's you're gonna hang your hat on that. Not anything so
Not that
terrible.
there's anything
about-
wrong with that.
Right, but
Obviously, Nintendo would have a different strategy if Zelda wasn't
if
there.
Zelda hadn't been
Yes.
there, they probably would have done something else. But I don't know, what that would be.
Yeah. Alan Cooley, Ben and GI Crew, something that I kept thinking about when I heard the news about Metroid Return of Samus that I had never heard anyone mention. Wasn't the remake of that game started as a fan project?
Uh-oh.
I could have even sworn that the guy was doing it lived in Spain or Argentina, which is where Mercury Steam is from. I remember reading the fan blog, and I know I once tweeted it to Hansen through my Twitter feed, but couldn't find it. Can you confirm? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, last year on the podcast, we even talked about it with Serial, that there was AM2R,
Yep.
another Metroid 2 remake that
And it got pulled down.
Nintendo shut down, and now we know very
Why.
clearly why, because they were also working on the remake.
They would have pulled it anyway.
Yeah, it is an interesting little touch that Mercury Steam is from Spain.
It is.
And the guy who developed that fan-made remake of Metroid 2 was from Argentina.
It's just like we see this so many times, especially with like Pokemon games. How
what?
many?
So the Spanish love Metroid 2 is my
All
point,
right.
Miller.
We've seen so many like
all these
fan
people
Pokemon
know each
games.
other somehow. I don't know.
I'm
what
not.
that
Hey,
means.
whoa, I'm not saying that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just like it's crazy. Like we've seen so many fan projects of Nintendo titles. They will get killed. Don't do them. Just don't make them. They're not. Nintendo will find them and destroy them.
Ask Nintendo for
Or the
permission
Star
to
Wars
say the word
guy.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
The Darth Maul guy who just keeps going.
They won't stop. To be fair, that video where we have gameplay of the Darth Maul game on YouTube is still skyrocketing. I think
Yeah.
it's close to like 1 million views at this point. People are still just constantly mad that the game doesn't exist. So if he's got the fan base, why not? Simple question from Nathan Paxton. Hey guys and gals, what's a movie scene that always gets to you and makes you tear up? Bertz, I'll just take your thunder. I know you were going to say Lion King when Mustafa dies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bertz has never seen Lion King.
No, I haven't. I always tear up when my daughter says she wants to watch Minions again.
Oh.
But not exactly for the same reason.
No, not for the same reason.
Oh gosh, you got to show her
which
Lion
is not
King.
a bad. Yeah, she'll see it. I mean,
Oh my God, Bertz.
Hanson,
what a-
I'm going to probably go through the entire Pixar / Disney catalog
Okay,
in
there
the
you
next
go.
5 years.
Thank
90s,
God.
90s Disney.
I don't think I'm going to be a different man at the end of it.
Oh,
but
it'll make
maybe.
a man out of you for sure. Absolutely. I remember watching Lion King, one of my favorite movies.
Is this your pick?
Maybe not. I have another one actually.
All right.
But Lion King specifically, I remember watching it in school for some reason. Like, oh, we're gonna end the school day by watching this. This is like high school. I was like, okay, watching Lion King in school. Maybe I'll remember these jokes from my childhood. No big deal. Mustafa scene.
Are you going to tear up right now talking about it?
It is so well done. Even in high school, surrounded by my peers, I was like trying to hide tears. Like, oh my god, it is so brutal. But I'll go with the end of Saving Private Ryan. I was just trying to describe it to somebody who had never seen that movie.
Good one.
Like, that is tough.
It's an okay one.
I would go.
Okay,
I would say probably the escape scene in Shawshank. Probably Shawshank Redemption.
Really?
Yeah,
Makes you emotional every time.
That and the actual like arrival at the beach in that movie are both like.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to say Transformers Last Night.
Yeah, that one too. It was really an emotional moment for me last night seeing that movie.
Weakest Transformers movie ever?
You really want to get into this?
Very briefly. Is it as disastrous as the trailer would lead us to believe?
I think I told you this morning, Ben, that after seeing that movie last night, it felt like that was a movie designed, like written in the same way that I would play the game in elementary school or middle school, where you like write one sentence and then you pass it to your friend and they write a sentence, and they pass it to somebody and they write a sentence, and eventually you have this total mishmash story that doesn't make any sense, where characters get introduced like partway through that had no involvement with the beginning of the story or no reason to be there.
But the segue between them all is just an explosion, just trying to connect all these dots
exactly.
together.
So like your scene transitions are just a gigantic explosion. It was totally bonkers, weird, nonsensical stuff.
Art.
10 out of 10.
Do you think there's any super hipster avant-garde artists out there that are into the Transformers movie just for the surreal nature of them?
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
I can say that like I see it because I really like the visual effects stuff, right? I like seeing. I mean, I'm a Transformers kid from the 80s. I like the idea of watching a car or a plane turn into a robot. That is entertaining to me. I am not going to go out of my way to try to defend what surrounds that in those movies.
Yeah.
Which, especially in this one, is just all over the place. I swear I really did. I caught myself a few times in the middle of the movie with my mouth open, just like, what?
Did anybody walk out?
No, nobody walked out.
That seems better. I saw Cars 3, and it was one of those movies that I sat through and was just numb to the entire experience.
Oh, really?
No jaws were open. No one was even blinking. The only time people would look at each other is to be like, "Is this boring to you?" Like, it's just an avalanche of nothing.
Okay,
What a bummer.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, that's not good. Dan Tech, what makes you cry?
Let's see. Let's go with the ending of Braveheart.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Strong message.
Yeah. I'll also throw in Toy Story 3 and Field of Dreams. Let's see. Nick from Bakersfield, California is just wondering what we're going to be playing over the summer. Are you guys going to catch up on any games?
Oh, yeah.
In theory,
Yeah.
if there's a drought here.
Well, we have to catch up on a lot of games. But
What's number one, Dan?
for catching up or just playing,
Catching up.
I gotta play Zelda, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, you haven't played it yet.
I know.
Okay.
Just play it on a Wii U.
Okay.
I played it. I played it on Wii U, and it was great.
I have not had a chance to stop and not play something. So like that's with Final Fantasy Darkest Dungeon, and then my break game, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Ugh.
What am I going to be playing? It's specifically catch-up games, huh? Well, I am trying really, really hard to get through Mass Effect Andromeda.
I am like at the 3 hours until I'm done, and I just pieced.
I am also like
I just left.
I'm so many hours in, and I'm like I gotta keep going. And to be fair, when I'm playing Mass Effect Andromeda, I don't hate it. Like I think there are redeeming features of that game, and I like some of the things about it. But I never finish a session and have that. I mean, every gamer is familiar with this sensation, so I won't try to describe it too much. But I never have that, like, I'm at work the next day, and I'm like,
And you're
I just
thinking
want
about
it, thinking
getting
about it. I just like, okay, how can I like organize my day and my evening so that I can get back to playing that game?
Yeah. You end up thinking the next day, but was that what Archon really said? Was that the dialogue they went with?
Is
with
that how they
character?
introduced a new
And
alien
yeah,
race?
and so and with Mass Effect Andromeda, it's always like I finish the session and I'm like, okay, Yep. And then like the next day, I'll come home and I'm like, okay, well I've got some time now. I could like watch an episode of that show, or I guess I could play Mass Effect.
Falling asleep on the couch sounds pretty good too.
Sounds killer.
Yeah. So like that's where I'm at with that game.
Just main path it. It's so fast.
I'm trying, but like that just feels.
That's not how he plays Bioware games.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like at that point, I might as well just not play it, because like if I get to the end and I haven't like improved my loyalty with any of the characters and they all die off or whatever, I don't know what happens.
I would
at
be
the end of that
perfectly
game.
fine if they killed everybody in that game.
But like I don't know. I that wouldn't be fun for me. So I have to do some of the stuff that's off to the side. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
If that was the ending, I actually think I would power through.
I won't spoil anything, but you'll be disappointed. Bertz, is anything on your list?
Yeah, I've got to get through Horizon. I started
So
it,
good.
and then I got interrupted with a bunch of review games, and that's the one that I'm just everything else can sit on the side. And I'd like to play some PlayerUnknown with you guys too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's always PUBG, and then another ending, or just getting more endings in Nier Automata. Like I got one, but I still feel bad that I don't feel like I have the full picture of why people love that game. So I need to go back and play through it.
Did you love it?
I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little bummed out with the path of the second time through the game, where it's like, well, this is going to be a little more repetitive than I imagined. But I hear after that it gets much more creative. Anyways, Nick from Bakersfield, California. Here's a list of AAA games releasing in October. Which one will be delayed? Ready? This is 2017. Forza 7.
No.
Nope.
Shadow of War.
Already
No.
got it delayed, didn't it?
Yeah,
They got an
into-
extra month.
I think
Yeah.
they're gonna be right where they are.
All right. Evil Within 2.
Possibly.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
All right, here's the doozy. South Park Fractured But Whole.
No,
Not again.
That has to be done.
They know it
done.
now, all right? Once they're good on that.
I feel like we said that exact thing 2 years ago. Like,
We did.
certainly now they have to get it out on this date.
I think that'll get out.
All right. Assassin's Creed Origins, 10/27.
yeah.
No, I think that's sticking.
I think this.
Think so?
I think if they delay, it'll be like sometimes Ubisoft does these really small delays. Like
Yeah.
it won't be like Assassin's Creed Origins is moving to spring. It might be like
They can't do
it's
that.
moving to November.
There's a
right.
company hanging over them that will not allow them
I
to
think
push
it lets
games
them-
out of quarters.
I think
Yeah.
it lands on time.
I think it will either land on time or maybe a week or two later.
Wolfenstein 2, New Colossus, also coming out on that 27th.
Definitely on time.
Yeah, single player shooter. That should be pretty
That's a piece of cake.
easy to put together.
They don't have to worry about. There's a lot of things they don't have to worry about
Yeah.
with a single player.
No
game.
infrastructures
Yep.
with
Yeah.
servers.
Super Mario Odyssey, also the same day. Assassin's Creed, Wolfenstein 2, and Odyssey, same day, 10/27.
It's killer day, man. 10/27. Jeez.
I think if I was Wolfenstein, I would move just to move.
Yeah,
Frankly,
absolutely.
but no, I think Nintendo is very disciplined and they're gonna
they're-
get it out.
Star Fox Zero says high. Zelda says high. But yeah, they got to get out this year for sure.
Yes.
Because they have like Xenoblade 2 in that holiday window, but I could see that. I could see that bumping. James Goings, real quick, has an interesting theory. We talked a lot about the Shadow of the Colossus remake on the podcast, and he says that they should change it a little bit more in one key way, which is in the remake. He suggests brilliantly, I think, that you should be able to go after any Colossus in any order.
I agree. That's cool.
I think you can do that. I don't think that would break the game.
No.
Sounds good to
I'm
me.
trying to, I don't
And they
know
also
why
need to
you
bring back
wouldn't.
the Lost Colossi. That's important.
No, that's controversial,
It's
but
going to happen.
yeah. And then Mike writes in and says, "Hey guys, why don't any of you have mustaches?"
I do. It's
I don't-
just in my
Doesn't
beard.
count. It's
we
buried.
kind of have
Doesn't
them on.
count.
Of course it counts.
But once Brian Vore left, we lost the magical mustache.
That
of
is
Game
true.
Informer.
Yeah.
The last mustache walking out the door. Not even like third floor people. Nobody can support. There are no mustaches.
No.
And the beard mustache, that doesn't count. It
Yes,
needs to be a
it does-
standalone.
It does count.
No.
Okay.
That's like saying that like if you have a painting that's just blue, that there's like art inside of it because you could remove any shape. Never mind. That analogy really didn't
It's
work.
terrible.
But you understand where I'm
it's
going.
like
What
it's
you're
like
talking
saying you have
about.
a mohawk when you just have
Yes,
a lot of hair.
Miller knows exactly.
All right,
a
whatever.
true writer here. He knows exactly what I'm going for. Favorite email. Dan, if you say mustache, I'm going to jump over there and strangle you.
Well, I wasn't going to say that one.
Just
The-
because it's the
the
most
nameless
recent
man.
thing he remembers.
The nameless man.
The nameless man who wants to
Who
take
wants a
tax to
$700
task.
PC?
Yeah.
That is a good FU.
Is it?
Maybe biggest disappointment was solid. Or
The
missing
nameless man
things.
created homework, so I really
Yeah,
like that.
okay.
he's-
Let's go with the name.
All right, player unknown here. We will ship you out something real nice. I'm sorry I don't know your name. I'll try and give you a
better
plug
hope
in the
that you
story.
can find it.
I
It will
guarantee
not
I
be
can.
a $700 computer.
I want to see this challenge.
Yeah, all right.
I want to see you do it in some capacity. This has been from the future cutting in to say that the person who wrote in that email was Robert Medina. Thank you, Robert Medina. You rule. All right, that's it for emails. Now let's move on and bring in the Jeffs and talk about the remaining fantastical games on the horizon in the game industry, what people are clamoring for. So we break it all down next. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm still here. I'm with the two wonderful Jeffs who did not go to E3 this year.
No, but we're here to talk about it.
Absolutely. In a way, this conversation is fueled by E3, but not directly relating to E3, which is perfect territory for Jeff Cork and Jeff Marchiafava. So thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
The point of this conversation is I think it's time to acknowledge that life is good. Life is worth living. Like Kurt Vonnegut always says, every once in a while, he got this from his uncle, I think. Every once in a while, you need to sit back and just acknowledge when you're having a time with a nice group of social people. You say, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is. And I feel like we need to do that for the game industry.
Yep.
Because it seems like over anything, maybe we're just really glued in on it, but people who play games, they're very demanding. They want a lot of things. They are always demanding. Why aren't you making this game? What the hell's your problem? Just make this game. Just make this game. And I came out of E3 this year, and I was like, that was one of my notes I took in my notebook after all those press conferences. Like, I guess fanboys just they have nothing left. What's left to complain about? Like, we have so many good games that were so long in development, so long rumored, just impossible that they'd ever come back in any capacity, the sequel would ever be made, and everything's either out or announced. Do you want me to run down some reasons why life is good?
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
I think it'd go a little something like this. All right, just keep in mind. So out now, we have a little game called Duke Nukem Forever.
Yes.
Right.
This was years ago, they made a new Bionic Commando.
Yeah.
They made 3 technically. What
Crazy.
a world. They made Mega Man 9 and 10, an NES throwback for the fans. Think about it. Prey, the new Prey. Prey 2 was canceled. Prey came out. A new Prey.
This is like the random musings of a maniac, Ben Hansen. What is going on?
They made a new Kid Icarus game. Doom 4 finally came out. Last Guardian came out. Versus 13 technically came out. It's Final Fantasy 15. Bayonetta 2. Yooka-Laylee. There's the Banjo-Kazooie, spiritual successor some people really wanted. They made a new Killer Instinct. They put then the Battletoads in Killer Instinct. Conker was in Project Spark. They made a spiritual successor to Planescape Torment, and they've even made Wasteland 3. They remastered and released Grim Fandango and Day the Tentacle, and then that's just stuff that's out. Upcoming.
Open your brains, people.
Just think about it. Upcoming, we have Metroid Prime 4, a 2D Metroid, Beyond Good and Evil 2, Pokemon, the RPG is actually coming to the Switch, Shenmue 3 is coming out in theory, StarCraft is being remastered, Psychonauts 2 is in development, Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out, Borderlands 3 is coming out, they're even porting Windjammers, the PS4.
You're really sneaking some of these in. I share your optimism and enthusiasm, but try to sneak in Windjammers and Bayonetta 2.
I'm just saying, when it
a lot
comes
of
to
stuff.
When it comes to fan service, the industry is glued in and clued in, and I feel like whenever fans are demanding something, there's an outcry. I think we should all be thankful that these things are out or in development. And you start thinking, what's left? What is left out there that is not being made? And I had a few maybe put the feelers out. It turns out there's a lot that people are still very into and would like to be made. Hey, Leo, can we pipe that music down a little bit now? Life is no longer good. Just to make it clear.
We're back to complaining now.
These are the games that people are still demanding, and I need your help to help me sort what's at the top of this heap.
Because some of these are going to be just weird things where there's a person that is just still into Fear 2, and they're like,
yes,
we want a new Fear 2.
Absolutely. So just out of the gate, there's a weird ballpark of fans demanding that games that were canceled be uncanceled, which I don't really count in this category of what fans are demanding to be revived or to finally be released. Stuff like Mega Man Legends 3, Star Wars 1313, Silent Hills even, StarCraft Ghost, Battlefront 3. There's a surprising amount of people that are demanding that they release that free Radical game or something more in that vein than DICE's Battlefront.
Dumbest thing I've ever
How
heard.
dare you? Even Scalebound. But those, even though there's fans demanding it, I feel like if it's canceled, off the list.
How can you be a fan of Scalebound? Let's be like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's something that odds are you never even played this thing.
Well, I think that's very true, but I think they're excited about the premise. They love Platinum's history. And it's like, oh my gosh, how bad can it be? They were super into headphones.
Bad enough to kill.
To end. I need you guys' help sorting these. Do you want to start with the top of the stack or the bottom of the stack?
What is the bottom of the stack? Like, what kind of criteria are we using? Like, things that are not likely or things that we do not want to see?
I've labeled the bottom of the stack the "it's nice to want things" category, to take a phrase from Sony's Shane Bettenhausen, where it's nice to want things, but these...
So this is not likely to
Let's
come
be
out.
realistic.
Okay.
You want to go through that?
Sure.
All right.
So what are we doing?
Okay, so I sent out a tweet from Game Informer's account, got a lot of responses of what people were looking for, and that's what I've roughly organized here. Just 2 out of the gate. 2 that I saw, and I was like, man, it's not going to happen. Just be thankful for what we have, everybody, which I think is the overall message of this segment. Someone was demanding another 2D Metroid that's set after Fusion, that the remake is not enough, which might be an argument, but realistically, it's not going to happen. It's nice to want things. And someone else was asking for a non-episodic, money-grabbing remake of Final Fantasy VII. We're getting a remake.
They're
of
not
Final
helping their
Fantasy
cause by like saying money grabbing. You would just say, "Hey, Square, it'd be nice if you just did that." You know, you don't want to insult them.
Right.
If he's looking to like butter them up a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You
World Ends With You 2. What are the odds Square makes a World Ends With You sequel? I believe Nomura directed that.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to keep things in the oven for a very, very long time.
They did an iOS port of that, didn't they?
They did.
I could see it happening.
Yeah.
Really?
Someday. Why not?
Okay. Okay.
I wonder, like with that one though, like the original one, wasn't there like a time of day element to that as well, or am I making something up?
I don't know. I didn't play too much of it. I just played maybe like the first
can't
hour
remember.
or something like
Yeah.
that. Dark Cloud 3.
Oh, I'd like.
Surprising amount of demand
See,
for.
that's the thing is, I would like to see a lot of these, but will it happen?
Yes.
Probably not.
This is what this category is to me, where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't want this, but
Right.
realistically,
Right.
this is the it's nice to want things category.
Right.
Spyro HD Collection.
Oh, that's. Oh, I wonder. It seems like almost like if that was something that was going to happen, it would have happened.
Plus, like the HD Collection, I don't think really works for PS1
Yeah.
games, so they would have to give it the Crash treatment. But in theory, those licenses are somewhat in the same ballpark, coming from Universal and whatnot.
Right.
And so if Crash does gangbusters, maybe they would, but Spyro 3 gets
Right.
pretty weird
It
with
seems
so
like
many
if
characters.
there was any enthusiasm for that, it would have happened in the PS3 era when there were just a ton of remasters happening. You remember, like there was like a Jack and Daxter collection.
For sure, yeah,
There's-
absolutely. But even that just falls into like the upres thing. But
Right,
you can't,
right.
you can't do it. Road Rash.
Oh,
Still
that's
people out there clamoring for the Road Rash.
that's the one. I don't think that will ever happen because we've talked to people who are working on various versions of it. For I mean, like that one is
Within
just
EA because they own the rights to it at
Yeah.
this point. And it just seems like every once in a while, a real firecracker will get into EA and be like, "We're gonna do it. We're bringing back Road Rash,"
Mhm.
and then they get beaten with a chain on the side of a road.
you realize. Yeah, I mean, how do you bring something like that back?
And especially with
Without it-
open world games at this point,
Yeah.
like there are plenty of games where you can just fight someone while you're driving down a road.
Right, like the iconic door slam move from State of Decay 2.
Oh my lord! Can you imagine taking that on the go in an RV?
Infamous 3.
That one seems like a weird one to be part of this conversation.
You think so?
It does, because the other ones are like old-timey games. And this
Mm.
one seems like everyone's busy, but presumably that will be happening, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I have a category here. The one notch above this is the probablys but waits.
I would
Do you
say
think
that's,
Infamous 3
oh,
goes
that's
into...
a,
Sure, move
absolutely.
that one
That's a
up.
probablys, but wait.
All right, I'm moving it up. Even if it's
Ziz.
not a Sucker Punch game, maybe they could give it to Sony Bend once they finish off Days Gone or
Mhm.
some sort of within Sony.
Yeah.
All right, it's officially moved. Portal 3.
Portal 3.
You could stick that one with every Valve game at this point, right?
In the realm of it's nice
Are
to
they
want things.
going to make games anymore? I guess in terms of Valve games,
Yeah.
that one I could see being one that they would actually go back to.
God, I just cannot imagine, especially with we talked about in the Game Club. I mean, every Portal writer leaving
yeah, all
the
their writers
studio
are
at this
gone.
point.
That
Yeah.
is
And
true.
what is Portal without the writing? Then it's just the community-made levels, which there are already 3,000 of, according to Leo Vader. He's a big fan of the community-made levels. But at that point, it's like that's already all out there. Like there's infinite test
Yeah.
chambers for people to play. So what is the hook if you don't have that
You'd
creative
just be
writing team?
making more weird mechanics that you'd
Finally,
make
that
new-
f-stop mechanic they
new
teased for
puzzles.
Portal 2 that they never put in. I still want to see it. Surprising amount of people out there, Sonic Adventure 4.
I-
And
yeah.
A New Conquers?
no.
No. Fable 4. Is Fable 4 in the camp of probablys but waits, or is it in the it's nice to want things, keep dreaming?
I think it's
kid?
nice to want things, keep dreaming, kids. Because if go back to if Microsoft had any enthusiasm for that, they would have released a game that was nearly finished, right? That it wasn't Fable 4, but it was that weird multiplayer. I'm the dungeon master thing they've been working on. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it wasn't. Again, it was not a mainline Fable game, but
Yes.
But for the sake of devil's advocate, maybe they looked at the response to that and say, hey, people don't want multiplayer crap in Fable. They just want an actual Fable.
And when
I could see if they get desperate enough. You know?
if they were finger on the pulse, though, that E3 showing where they had Fable the Journey, that Kinect game, they would have pulled the plug on that one
Right.
too.
It's true. But just think about they're pretty hot and horny for Microsoft IP that they own at this point, right? Like they're digging through the trenches a fair amount to try and get some enthusiasm. And if you just embrace that, get someone like Obsidian on it, just make it a little more, I don't know, focus on trying to rope in some of that Skyrim crowd a little bit more, perhaps. I think there would be an audience, but I think it's in the it's nice to want things camp. Believe it or not, more than one person on Twitter. Rage 2.
I like Rage. I think it was a cool game. It's nice to want a Rage 2, but that
All right,
probably
there
will
we
not
go.
happen.
There we go. Mario RPG sequel, also nice to want,
Yeah.
but Square's busy.
They have the Mario and Luigi games. I think that's where.
So many. Resistance 4.
Oh,
Ooh.
There's a lot of these where it's the fourth, where it'd be opening up that old garage to dust off everything after the third entry in the series.
Mhm.
What do you think?
That
Resistance
seems-
4?
that seems like a relic in the same way as
Yep.
crap, I forgot the name of it, but yeah, just trust me, it was a very good, smart example.
Republic Commando 2.
Republic Commando 2.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I mean, at this point, EA, I'm sure, is working on a billion new Star Wars titles. Why go back to something that you have to try and please all these fans with?
I mean, they did it with Battlefront, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that was just such an obvious thing of we own DICE, and now we can make a Star Wars Battlefront
Yeah.
game. Kiss.
Mhm.
Yeah, where's this? Yeah, I don't know who you would put on that team. Warcraft 4 from Blizzard. I don't think there's any way.
Really?
There's no way.
Yeah. It doesn't really fit with their service model kind of approach nowadays.
Right. And they already have so many Warcraft characters in Heroes of the Storm, so making a MOBA focused even RTS would not even work for that. What about Parappa the Rapper?
Oh boy,
We saw how
that's a
that
difficult one. Yeah, because there was that Project Rap Rabbit
Yeah.
that did not make even a fraction of its Kickstarter goal.
And so how the hell within Sony do they make a PowerPoint presentation to say this will make money? Look, I know the spiritual successor on Kickstarter bombed and did not quite make its cash, but there's still an audience out there.
Well, they did the I don't know if we want to be
The
generous
remaster.
enough. The remaster, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I bought it instantly because I'm a big sucker. Of
course.
I have a incredible soft spot for that series.
And have you played the remaster?
Yeah, I played through it in its entirety after downloading it.
Oh wow.
Even that bullshit chicken level, which
Wait, what's the chicken level?
the Cluck Tuck chicken where you're cooking the cake that she puts sardines on it and stuff. It like the timing on it is just broken. Like,
Oh God.
even if you're following the prompts, that one in particular, that song just for whatever reason, and they've maintained it over the years, like it is impossibly difficult because
Yeah.
you have to go against what you're seeing on screen to succeed sometimes.
So
But-
Parappa the Rapper 3.
I would like to
It
see
has to be a dog, not a rabbit.
It has to be. Well, yeah, it has to be
That's
an
it.
official sequel.
Do you think it's just nice to want? Do you think there's any chance it's coming?
No, it's nice to want.
All right. Sly Cooper 5. I'd say 4 was a miracle godsend. No way.
Mm-mm.
No way. KOTOR 3.
Oh, no way.
No way.
No freaking way.
Although you think of like
although-
BioWare Austin, you know,
Yeah.
assuming that Anthem doesn't take over and absorb all of the different BioWares for its huge development, which it seems like it's growing more and more, absorbing all of Montreal at this point. But do you think maybe with all of those Old Republic developers, they realize like these guys know Old Republic so well, maybe we should just give in to that fan service and just make a focused KOTOR 3 experience? Still in the nice to want?
I think it's in the nice to
Yeah.
want.
All right, now we're getting into the probablys but waits.
Okay.
This is the category of games that, yes, it's been a little while, but I would bet a lot of money there will be a new one.
Oh, by the way, Half-Life 3 belongs in that it's nice to want things, right? Unless you're like trying to sneak it into one of these other categories.
I have another category that I think fits that,
Okay.
which we can
Okay.
get to. Probablys but waits, a new Burnout.
A new Burnout, like a proper Burnout.
If they ever drive the Need for Speed series into the ground more than they have after that reboot and stuff that didn't go well in the film, that didn't
Yeah.
really go well, new game looks all right. But do you agree? Burnout, probablys but waits?
You said a proper burnout?
Yes, not an iOS crash mode.
Right. Would we accept something from, is it Three Fields they're calling themselves?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If they, because they, is the one that they were working on out yet? Or, because they were working on like a car crashy
Yes,
game, but
Danger
it was
Zone came out.
very distilled.
Yes, and Kato seemed
And the-
lukewarm on
And
it.
the
in
fact
the
that
end.
it's already out is probably not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. But I think if Ghost Games, which is kind of heading up Need for Speed at this point, if they drop the ball too much in Need for Speed and they need to kind of reinvigorate the racing genre within EA, you go for Burnout. Just call the game Burnout. Even if it's basically the same as Need for Speed, I think you would get a little of enthusiasm out there. Right?
And you're saying with an actual crash mode.
Yes.
Not
That
Paradise's
seems like
weird mode.
potentially, a little harder of a sell, but
Okay, that's bottom. I'll move it down to nice to want
Okay.
officially. Soul Calibur 6.
Oh, that's, yeah, for sure.
Probablys but waits.
Yeah.
Devil May Cry. And this is where it gets interesting. There's the 5 people and there's the DMC 2 people.
Uh-huh.
Which do you put money on? Or do you say neither?
Neither is in like, it's just not going to happen.
It doesn't belong in the probablys but waits category.
I'll say wait, but I'm not sure which one. But eventually, they got to go back and make some kind of new Devil May Cry.
Yeah. We know that
Why do we say that, though? Because they eventually have to make another Onimusha.
eventually they have to
Right.
make another 1942.
Right. Well, they did, didn't they?
I think they're still on iOS, I believe, in some capacity. We know Ninja Theory isn't working on DMC 2.
No.
So I would put money on Devil May Cry 5 versus DMC 2.
Okay.
But I think that's just a matter of time. New BioShock, someone brought up.
New Bioshock.
Hasn't been too long.
Ooh, boy.
There's not that much clamoring out there, but it's in the probablys but waits category, right?
Was that something that they could do without Ken Levine on board?
Mr.
Just
Levine?
even like in terms of those optics that we all like so much.
I think
like,
Ken
it would
Levine-
look weird without him or his blessing, right?
It would, maybe they'll just have, some in the dev diary reveal of the game or something. They'll have Ken Levine kind of giving it his tip of the cap. A little bit like the Todd Howard Elder Scrolls Online thing, where he probably secretly hates it quite a bit, but it's like, you gotta be cool,
His
play
middle
2K
finger
ball.
subtly extended up.
Mass Effect Remaster, surprisingly in demand here. Does it belong in the probablys but waits category?
That's kind of an interesting one. After Andromeda and considering Anthem, do they want to just go back
I think so.
to the
Get
well of
another
the good
studio
ones,
on
I
that?
guess?
I think it's a.
And
I
what would
think it's
that one look
probablys but
like too?
waits.
Would they have some kind of remix mode where you get to choose what style you want the combat to be like, or
Yeah.
are they like, I
That'd be
want like
cool.
3's combat from the very beginning, or do they just keep it more faithful as you go through?
Man, that is a big decision they'd have to make up front, because just that idea
It's
of like,
very-
well, let's retrofit 1 with more action combat,
Yeah.
like that would break so many things.
Yeah.
It would have a crazy rippling effect, but I would hope that's the way they're going. Maybe that's why it's taking so long.
Probably.
Put more than 2 NPCs in the Citadel. That'd be cool. Desolate.
Up there, but I don't think it belongs in the royalty category. Elder Scrolls 6. It's one of those where it's like, oh, come on, it hasn't been that long. Look, it's been since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you count Skyrim VR.
Yeah, that'll
Probably,
happen.
but waits.
Yeah.
I mean,
You just
Bethesda's
have
a
to
small
wait long
studio.
enough.
Yeah. Left 4 Dead 3?
No.
No. It seems like every week there's a story about some source code leaking from
Right.
Valve that has a reference to Left 4 Dead 3 from it. Over any other Valve game, I
Remember
would
the-
put money on
the
this.
Bully 2 composer said that, or Bully composer said that he'd finished work on Bully 2 like 7-8 years ago.
And
Yeah.
that also seems like it might be one of those desperate, like, there's a guy inside Valve who wants this thing to happen, and so, but no one else wants to work on it or, actually make a game. So he's just kind of desperately putting out these things to try and get people to talk about it.
It's a leaker.
Yep.
So we're going to the It's Nice to Want things?
I
Left 4
think
Dead
so.
3?
Yeah.
All right, moving down
I
officially.
think it has the name Valve anywhere near it. Just say goodbye.
Yeah. Probably but waits. New Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing Switch.
Oh, yes.
It's going to happen.
Oh, my God. I'm very excited for that when it does happen.
It's going to be magical. Diablo 4.
Yeah.
Probably but waits. Okay, this is the category I call the nice to haves, where it's like, hey, if they ever get to it, they probably will. Not a lock. Curious what you guys think
Wait,
of
is
this.
this even like more of a sure thing than the last category?
No. Probably but waits are going to happen. This is less of a sure thing, I suppose. But you tell me what needs to move down to the It's Nice to Want things category.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm
A
really
new
confused.
Golden Sun.
A new Golden Sun?
I remember a new one coming out. Turns out that was 2010, so it has been a while since they revived it. But even that one on DS was also a hey, look at old time fans, look at this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Truly our Golden Sun. Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, Camelot is very busy with those Mario Sports games. They're cranking out a lot of those things. Time Splitters 4.
That's my reaction to that. I would like I would like to see a Time Splitters 4, but I don't know that it would happen.
It's locked up in
Yeah.
that weird Crytek license.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You're better off just playing Homefront: The Revolution and having that sweet Time Splitters 2 Easter egg, which no one talks about in there. Which is very cool. Have you ever seen that stuff, Cork?
Mm-mm.
There's like an HD version of 1 or 2 levels from Time Splitters 2 in Homefront: The Revolution
Really?
as a crazy Easter egg.
Huh.
Yeah, it's awesome. New SOCOM from Sony.
No, I think that ship
No.
has sailed.
No way.
I don't think so. I think that was like a of its era kind of a thing where like a tactical shooter was. I think there are so many other ways, like places you can experience that at this point.
What about in a world where, Zipper, the developer, is gone, right? I think so. But at this point, what about a world where you take SOCOM, put the Battle Royale genre with it, and then it's 100 Navy SEALs on an
That
island?
makes no sense whatsoever.
Just think about it.
Oh, and they're like trying to find out like only one of you can join. The Navy
Right.
SEAls. That's
Only the
how they
best
do
of the
it?
best. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a real Darwin project.
That really honors our fighting men and women. That's how they do
There'd
it.
be
Right?
like after you die, a quote from Ben Franklin appears on the screen.
Yeah, what more do you want? The quote from Ben Franklin's right there.
I made a stove.
I made a stove. Brothers in Arms. New Brothers in Arms.
Brothers in Arms.
Randy Pitchford teases it every other week on Twitter. Will it
Right.
ever happen?
I don't know. We're gonna see Inglorious Bastards too, so they get some more ideas. Jesus.
Oh, we're gonna have to base it off Hateful Eight. Oh, we got nothing.
Oh, no.
Let's see. Dead Space 4.
I would love to see that, but I
Oh.
don't know that would happen.
Oh, geez. It seems like these are all moving down the It's Nice to Want things category so far, guys. New Perfect Dark. Again, I feel like it falls in that Microsoft camp of they're hungry for franchises that people care
Right.
about, that they own. First-person shooters are
man.
huge.
I will put this in the same category. I'll put Beyond Good and Evil too, where
Announced.
I will not shut up about wanting this, but then when it comes out, I will probably wait for it to go on sale before forgetting to buy it.
All right.
I'm speaking on behalf of the fan base. I don't care about either of those two games really,
You're a
but
monster. New Perfect Dark could be cool. And I feel like they have such an easy messaging. It'd be basically the Crackdown 3 development message, where it's like, oh, forget Crackdown 2. We know that we messed up. We're going back to the original, harkening back to everything that's great about that. Skate 4.
I love that.
Ooh, that's a tough sell too, though.
This is one that I could see moving up because who knows if it's a joke, if it's ironic at this point, but there is that crazed fan base. I think you
Definitely.
guys saw Leo in the booth, even like during like EA's press conference, everybody was just commenting, give us Skate 4, announce Skate 4 already. It has become this cyclone that it's just fueling itself.
Especially just with the amount of like that would be so big on streaming too. Because like that was one of the most fun things to do is watch like glitch videos that people were making and just like crazy stunts and stuff. It seems like a perfect game for this era.
That's
a new
interesting.
Skate.
Yeah. New Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, the fabled Chrono Break. Is this moving down to It's Nice to Want Things?
I think. Yeah.
Moving it down. Probably not. I could see a Chrono Trigger remake before anything new. Here you go, Cork. This is your bread and butter. Bread and butter for daddy. Power Stone.
Oh boy.
Is there a world where Power Stone can come back?
I think that this is a game that someone will make a game and say, "Oh yeah, Power Stone is it's a spiritual successor to
Right.
that," and people will be excited. But I don't know that brand proper will be coming out.
All right, this is one that might even be worth moving up.
Okay.
F-Zero.
This is almost another one of those where like an entire genre has emerged of
Yes.
not F-Zeros, but basically F-Zeros.
Fast Racing Neo and the version on Switch and all that.
and others.
Yeah. And
So
even like
I wonder like what's their incentive?
normally, when developers or companies have some statement about why they're not making a game, and it's like, all right, yeah, but still the fans want it. But Miyamoto, I think in an interview, said it in a way that was better than anybody else could. I think where he's like, yeah, we just don't know what we do with it. Like outside of like
Yeah.
a better looking F-Zero, I don't know. Like what's the gimmick?
Captain Falco is a better punch kick guy anyway. these
Falcon,
days.
but absolutely. Splinter Cell.
I got my Falcons crossed. Splinter Cell. Oh man.
Guillemot just said we haven't forgotten about it,
Right.
but they really went all in on Blacklist,
Uh-huh.
and it seemed like fans were angry about the voice, and then still at the end of the day appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
They could not have gone in harder trying to give fans everything they want, except for that voice
right.
with that game.
That's why the next one, which I think it will come, opens with a bullet right in the vocal cords. And then they can hire whoever they want.
I'll move that down to the probablys, but wait. Okay, now we have
Okay.
what I term the royalty, right? The legendary kings and queens of the what's left to want in
Okay.
the video game industry.
I look forward to moving these all to the nice to want something list.
All right, Agent, Rockstar's Agent.
Oh, God.
Man.
No way.
I still want that game, but
Why do you want it?
'cause
Okay.
open world Rockstar, but with agents
PS3
doing like
exclusive?
secret missions.
That's all we have is the name.
yeah.
Just think about it, agents.
Yeah.
They're causing mayhem, all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's everything you
You
want.
go on missions. What more do you want? Heist, spies. Come on.
All right.
Does
Cool.
Agent is it
Covert.
such a long shot it doesn't belong on the royalty list? And when here's the criteria for royalty, right? It's just fan outcry. The percentage chance of it coming out or not, I don't think that will demerit it from being on the royalty list. Does Agent belong on that royalty list?
Yeah, I think fans have been super wanting that for a long
Fans
time.
of that logo.
All right.
What more do you want, Cork?
Literally any details.
Do you think there's more fan demand for Agent or Bully 2?
Oh, Bully 2, undoubtedly. There's absolutely no question about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
from Jeff Cork.
So Bully 2 belongs in royalty?
Yeah, for sure.
Advance Wars. New Advance Wars. Is that royalty at this point for fans demanding it?
I think that one is unfortunately delegated to assist trophies at this point with Captain Falco.
So not even royalty? I mean, there's a lot of people that are demanding it. Intelligence Systems, they're dabbling with codename Steam. And now
that's true.
and there's the fan base. Who is it? Chucklefish is making a game that is just Advance Wars, but set during medieval times. Here's one. Tell me if this belongs in the royalty camp or if I'm just too glued into this scene. Pokemon Snap. A new Pokemon Snap. Do you think the fans demanding it puts it in that top tier?
Are there that many fans demanding it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, big time.
Well, then I guess it's in that tier. What do you want?
What about a new Mega Man?
A new Mega Man. So would you consider like Mega Man X1, like Mega Man 11, like one of the retro style remakes? Would you consider that to be a new Mega Man, or would you want?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's what fans are looking for. Do you think 9 and 10 quieted that down, or do you still think this is royalty for fans screaming about it?
I guess I'm not tapped into the fan base as much, but it seems like Capcom, and then what was the spin-off Kickstarter?
Oh, Mighty Number 9?
Yes. I feel like that has killed the enthusiasm.
What on Capcom's side has killed the enthusiasm?
Them just not wanting to do anything with it.
But they
did Legacy Collection 1 and 2.
Yeah, the second one just came out.
Or it's coming out.
It's coming out, right?
Yeah, they showed it at E3. So?
I don't know. Sure. If people, I guess my impression is that people have just been like, oh yeah, Mega Man's dead. Screw it.
I felt that way before the Legacy Collection. It seems like I think that's quieted fans down a little bit. They wanted a full steak and they got a McRib.
But do they have any feeling that Capcom could actually deliver the thing that they want?
Confidence in Capcom's development of a 2D.
Are there any Mans left? That's the larger question, because they were like doing Wool Man and
Man.
Man.
Now we get to the big two. What I consider the big two. You let me know if there's something other than this. Half-Life 3. That's number one.
Never,
fans demand it.
No.
You're putting it 0.
0.
I think I'm in the same camp.
Right.
That
But
is
it's
no
but
longer
it's
a
still
thing.
in the legacy category.
Yeah, for sure. It's Hall of Fame.
It's Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just a joke at this point.
Yes, exactly. If it ever comes out, it'd be called Half-Life Adventures Through the City, and then it'd be weird community-made levels that Valve would creatively stitch together and say, now it's infinite hallways with head crabs. Look at this.
You do a really good Valve, by the way.
I do feel like even though we considered the dream totally dead, the fan base, I feel like, still hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah. Do you want to deliver a message for him, Jeff?
It's dead.
Which one is his camera?
Right in the middle.
Yeah, look to your camera.
I just did it. It's dead. I'm sorry. Everyone's gone. They're not making games anymore. You just got to let it go.
What are they doing?
They're making money from Steam.
And
playing with giant swords. I don't know. What do you want?
buying the most expensive giant swords and playing with them?
Yeah.
All right. I think number 2 behind Half-Life 3 at this point, strangely enough, I think it's Mother 3. I think it's a localization of Mother 3, so we can finally figure out where that Lucas weirdo pervert came from in Smash Brothers. Right? Is there a better number 2 for what fans are demanding than Mother 3?
That's a really good one.
I think it is. And even they released Earthbound Beginnings on 3DS, and it seemed like there was a small crowd in the corner of a room somewhere that said "Yeehaw!" and then no one ever talked about it since. So I wonder if like Nintendo just saw that and it's like, well, look, we see these download numbers. What are we doing? We're never going to do this.
So question, would it be a straight virtual console port with translation, or would they do some kind of fancy update?
Well, you get Alpha Dream, you get that Mario and Luigi team, pull them off that series for God's sake. Just have them do a remake on Switch. But I think the localization, just pure English translation, would be a more realistic option. It depends on what the virtual console looks like on Switch whenever they unveil it in any capacity, you know? And if they would even be up for selling Game Boy Advance games on there. Is there a better number 2? Is that's the King and Queen?
I'll sign off on that.
I like Bully 2 up there too. I like that for number 2, but that's just me.
I think that's just you. All right, so royalty, Half-Life 3, Mother 3, New Mega Man, Pokemon Snap, Advance Wars, Bully 2, Agent.
Yeah. Agent is still very strange to have in there.
All right.
Why
Agent.
is that strange? In terms of fans wanting a thing, I realize it never existed. But I mean, either as Half-Life 3, you know, maybe Half-Life 3, you know, they've actually dabbled with development.
I think it's...
And also, you were able to play Half-Life 1 and 2, so you could build up fandom as opposed to, here is a logo.
Also, it just seems like all these, I mean, as long shot as they may be, people have a good idea of what they would look like if they were ever released. But if Agent came out it could be 1,000 different things. Everyone would be like, yeah, that's how I imagined Agent. Like, it's too nebulous. Whereas a new Advance Wars, you can probably plug the pieces together and have something concrete to be excited about.
Sure. Whatever.
Sorry, Jeff.
People don't actually want Agent. Let's strike it from the list.
It's just moving down to the nice to want things category.
All right.
It's not in the royalty anymore. That's it. So once the game industry gives us all of these, then people will finally be happy.
Just mail out your notes. They'll
Absolutely.
get to working on it.
It's going to take a lot to explain what exactly you're doing, because I still don't fully understand. I did like the music, though.
Oh, good. Thank you, Jeff Clark. I'm just trying to figure out what is left to want. What's left for fans to be crying about and be outraged about not possessing?
One you missed, though, is a new Pilot Wings.
Do you think? Because Yoo-Hoo Island, little
I
adventures.
don't want to
on
go there. I want to go across the U.S. of A. Or broaden it out even more, the friggin' world.
I mean, I pulled a lot of tweets, and not a single person said, I demand a new Pilot Wings.
Well, that's why you had me on as your guest, right?
All right, you know what? Putting it on royalty.
Sure.
Hall of Fame Platinum Club.
Screw those other games.
Yep.
Pilot Wings.
That's top priority.
Yeah.
Done deal.
Pilot Wings Switch. I'm going to call it so boldly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Anything else you guys would like to say?
I think this is a good show, and I like to listen to you talk.
God bless you. All right, and that's it for this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to watch or listen next Thursday when we'll have a new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody. All right, guys, we're back with the Game Informer Show. We got top 3 sports games you're looking forward to in 2018. Take it away, Cork. What do you
All
want?
right, we got Windjammers coming number 1 with a bullet. Everyone's been asking for it. You're throwing a frisbee with
Actually,
your bros.
no, you were correct the first time. It actually is you're throwing a bullet this time, throwing it around the volleyball court, trying to reflect it and dodge it, and
A
wearing
bullet?
purple. Yeah, number 1 with
number
a bullet.
one. Okay, number 2 with the bullet. What would that be, bro?
Sports ball.
Sports ball with a bullet coming in number 2. It's a good one. Have you guys checked out Mario lately?
What is Mario up to these days?
He's getting into racquetball.
What?
Yeah.
With a bullet or a ball?
He's actually using a bullet
He's using a bullet?
this
I
time.
wouldn't play with Bowser or you'd get squashed.
I won! I won! Oh, boy.